Nice.
Lord Vader, we have them in our sights. Should we proceed?
Stand down, Commander. Leave them to me. The nerds are mine.
Okay, no, you win this. You get to do the face. Damn it.
Oh, because is that a fat joke? Is it
I'll
because
do
of my
this one.
fat face?
You do that one.
If you can hold that face through the entire show. All right, done.
Oh, great. There's the video. Hold on. That's gonna.
Oh yeah, tell us when we're going live. We can both do
We're
that.
live.
I'm doing it.
So
this
go.
is my Java impersonation.
And begin. All right, we're
Well, that's
live.
great. I'm glad that's on the internet.
The first episode of the new year.
Woo!
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Smoking Hot Nerds podcast, everybody. It's been a little while, a few months.
That is my fault.
It's been a minute.
Yeah, Nico thought it would be more important to spend time with his newborn than his best friend, so that
God, he
Raising a
won't shut
child.
up about it.
I know it's Alfred this, Alfred that, kind of getting a little annoyed with it. So, but we'll. That was the face of a dad right there. He's like, yeah, keep telling me.
Listen.
Oh, you're
of all
tired
the
of
days,
this?
of all the days, today is the day because last night was bed at 8:30, screaming awake at 9:15.
Yes.
Back to sleep at 9:45, screaming awake at 10:45, back to sleep till about 11:30 midnight, screaming awake at midnight, and then like a 2-hour inconsolable scream sesh, and then food, and then another scream session at 5 a.m. So yeah, that's the face of that happened.
Well, he's screaming because you're not supposed to use your nipple. You know that,
Yes,
right?
that's right.
Yeah.
He gets so frustrated
Yeah.
with
Like,
my mentees
there's-
did not produce them.
Keep trying, buddy.
Yeah.
You'll get there.
It's
I
called
saw a movie
perseverance.
once. They said that you can milk anything with nipples.
There's clearly milk in here. I just can't get it out.
And then once you started actually finding something, you were like, wait, what is that? Is that
Yeah.
blood? What are
That
you,
is blood. That
what are
is
you
blood.
drinking?
You never
not
want to
the
hear
blue book.
anyone say, "What are you drinking?" in a mad way.
Yeah.
While you have a baby on your man nipple.
It needs to be more like,
Wait, what is
"Hey,
that?
What are you drinking? What are you drinking?
Yeah.
What are you
What do you
drinking?"
find in there?
What are you drinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not. Oh, what are you
Ah.
drinking?
Yeah.
What were you drinking?
Why are you
Welcome
smacking
back,
your lips?
everyone.
Yeah, well, the last episode we did was just me and Eric, and we did an episode about The Last Samurai, and we talked a little bit about the Tokyo Olympics. Yeah, we were scraping the bottom of the barrel at that point for
The
topics.
Last Samurai?
Well, we had talked about
Did
it because
we?
I had just watched it.
oh.
So, yeah. It was a dark time
I
for
mean,
content.
it was a great conversation.
Yeah. There was a little bit of
I
a drought.
treasured it.
I'm glad you remember that. No, we
Well,
actually...
because it was you going, "Hey, Eric, have you watched this?" And me going, "No." And you going, "How about this?"
The question
it was
was, have you watched
exhilarating.
it? And you say, is it animated? And I would say no. And then you'd be like, nope. So that's usually how that went.
Does it have tentacles? Then no, I did not see it.
Does it look like the back of a Target storeroom? No, I haven't seen
Then
it. Now, that was episode 77. So this is officially episode 78 of the Smoking Hot Nerds podcast. So we got to have a celebration when we hit 100. I think that would be appropriate. Mm-hmm.
So that's what, 20 weeks from now, which puts us 4 weeks a month, 5 months. That's what, June?
Summer.
Yeah, perfect. Let's all have our shirts off.
Oh, shit, I don't know.
Be
With the
summertime.
baby up on our.
Everybody
Yeah,
find a
Alfred-
baby.
Yeah,
too.
Alfred will be,
I'm
he'll be
getting
turning
2
one,
babies.
and we can figure it out.
Baby, left nipple, right nipple, left baby and right baby. I love that
I
idea.
guess technically, I need to get 3 babies then.
Oh. That's not a nipple. It's not what you think it is.
I keep telling you to go to the doctor and get it checked out, Eric.
It looks like you upgraded your glassware since the last time we saw you. Is that a crystal stemless wine glass you're drinking out of right there? It looks fancy.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's crystal.
Look at you.
It's from the Crystal Gale line.
Uh-huh. Who's that?
Now, what is this? This is American Repertory Theater. It's actually ancient. It's
Oh,
old.
wow, look at that.
I'm just using a wine thingy.
I love it. That's what I drink out of. Well, so we need to make sure that we, for one, well, so we're pointing out Brian's not with us right now. Not he did. He's alive still. He's just working hard. It's 6:00 in LA, and so it's a little early for the film industry to call it a night. So he'll be with us as soon as he
When's
he can.
that? 1 a.m.
Yeah.
When does the film industry call it good?
Yeah, well, that's when we're gonna finish the podcast. So he'll be on when we're in hour 7.
Well, we're happy for Brian though, because busy is good.
Busy is
So,
good. Busy is very, very good. That's a
and
beautiful
he does
thing.
good work, and we're all excited to see his stuff.
Absolutely.
Space Force 2 coming to Netflix.
he has
Hard
nothing to
away,
do with
guys.
Space Force 2.
Space Force 2.
And but we should
Well,
mention
space.
on the top here, it is now the Smoking Hot Nerds is now a Star Wars only. Well, not only, but it's
Only.
what we're going to talk about. That's all we're going to say.
If
be
you
like that.
slip some Trek
Yeah.
in there or some Babylon 5, I'm walking.
Yeah, none of that. I mean, I really want to talk about Succession, but we won't. So the thing is, Eric and I, ever since we were in college, we would call each other on the phone, because that was back in the day. We didn't have cell phones. We were talking on the phone that was attached to the wall at the dorm room, and our conversations would always end up being about Star Wars. And so I find that we always did that too in the podcast, you know, the three of us, and then when Brian joined, it always kind of devolved into how much we hated the prequels or something like that. And so it just makes sense with all the Star Wars content hitting the market in the next year.
We might as well just at least start with Star Wars.
Yeah, see where things
And
go.
then if we end up somewhere else.
I mean, yeah,
Exactly.
there's still nerd stuff that will slide in. Like if they do, we'll get some Marvel MCU stuff
Sure.
because that's taken off. Might slip in, you know, the Matrix type stuff. I mean, there will be pop culture stuff that infuses, but
Yeah.
you're not wrong. We'd always Star Wars is basically the baseline comparison that everything else is like vetted against.
Yeah, exactly.
It just is. It's just how it works. So,
Unapologetically,
yeah, makes sense.
Star
Yeah, no
Wars.
kidding.
So we got a fresh new look. We got a fresh new Instagram. So swing by our Instagram when you have time at Smoking Hot Nerds.
There's
We
an
now.
amazing graphic.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty proud of it, and I appreciate you guys' help in designing it, based off of the Empire Strikes Back logo that was basically like the logo that was used for the special editions, or was it the THX version editions? I think the special editions, when they kind of homogenize the look of each cover. So that's what this is.
Right.
We now have we've had a Twitter for a second at Smoking Hot Nerds. We've got the Instagram, we've got the Facebook, of course. And we have a TikTok now.
No.
And I tell you what, it's blowing up. The last post has 55 views. So look out, world. Smoking Hot Nerds are taking over TikTok. Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so it's only a matter of time before I'm showing my booty and, yoga pants and doing dances. So we'll see.
Scripted dances.
Yeah. Well, my
And
goal is to do
duets.
is to do everything with toys. I want to do the whole thing with Star Wars toys only, but we'll see how long that lasts.
I do everything with toys.
Oh, we could do.
Yeah.
I got the Mandalorian rifle. That was my Christmas present to myself.
Yeah. So I'll give you guys the login, and you can go ham. Put whatever you want on there. I got some
I don't know
hair in
what
my
you
mouth.
talked about. I don't have any Star Wars stuff.
No toys? No Star Wars toys?
No,
No costumes at the costume shop that you run?
no.
Okay. Good
no,
to know.
Nothing.
Good.
I'm a cool guy.
Good hire, Nico. This is great. This worked
Yeah,
out well.
well, you know.
I'm a cool guy with Kermit the Frog over his shoulder.
No, thank you. I'm a cool guy, okay?
Mm.
I'm not into dweeb stuff.
Dweeby,
Don't
dweeb
look
stuff.
behind me.
So it should be to hard segue into Boba Fett.
Yeah.
So the elephant in the room is that
Yeah.
Boba Fett is probably one of arguably the most popular 10-second screen time characters
Yes.
of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was so popular from the original 456. He has one line, I
Mhm.
think, right? He has one line and he gets addressed one
Right.
time. And then all of a sudden, when they do the prequels, he's muy importante, right? He is. I don't know chicken egg scenario like how that worked in. Then you've got basically all of Rebels and all of Clone Wars. Not all of Clone Wars, but most of Clone Wars and almost all of Rebels has to deal with Mandalorian culture and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And now you've got the Mandalorian, which exploded. And at the end of season 2 of the Mandalorian, you meet Boba Fett, which was enough to spin into this whole book of Boba Fett. So it's from an outside perspective on. There's some designer that worked with Lucas way back who just sketched out a bunch of bounty hunters. I'm sure Lucas or somebody in the art department was like, we just need a bunch of bad looking dudes to be bounty hunters.
It's gonna be like super troopers, Imperial super troopers.
That's exactly what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So like just give me some ideas. And then they show up, and then because is he in Empire as well? Because he's in like the ring, right? Yeah, he's in the ring of bounty hunters in Empire, where that's where his line is, I think.
And then he kind of catches Han Solo. Spoilers.
Yeah, whatever. And then, right, but then he's popular enough though, probably from catching him. But in Return of the Jedi, that when Han comes out of Carbonite, like they said, like, did somebody say Boba? Like enough to be like, oh my God, somebody said Boba Fett. We are in trouble now. So it's amazing just that this tiny little character idea is now enormous. Is huge.
Well, we can walk it back just a little bit. It's fascinating because so I mean we could probably do a whole episode just on the little there's like a little documentary featurette on Disney Plus called Behind the Helmet. So watch it if you haven't watched that. And it's all about Boba Fett. And that was the thing is that originally the concept, I think it was is it Joe Johnson or Joe Johnston, Ralph McQuarrie, and George Lucas had all kind of come up with this character that was supposed to be, this super soldier. So originally he was white. He had the T-guard face. It was basically
There's going to be an army of them.
Yeah, it was going to be an army.
Group. Yeah.
Exactly. So that was the whole point. Budgetary reasons sort of denied them from making an entire army of these super soldiers. So the props and makeup guy who was involved in the whole process, and again I forget his name now, but he essentially just took the armor, spray painted it green and orange, and turned it into this character. And they were like, oh, that's cool, let's do that. And so it became Boba Fett. It already was getting planted, though, in the minds of kids and fans because there was a parade in Modesto, California, which is where the ranch is, kind of near there up in wine country. And Darth Vader was in it, and Boba Fett was in it. And this was in between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. So Star Wars was already massively popular, but Empire hadn't even come out yet. And so there was this random character that all of these kids were already falling in love with, and he hadn't had any screen time at all. And so the buildup of Boba Fett started in 1978 or 79, before the movie even came out, which is pretty cool. And I think what's interesting too is how in the prequels became the clones came from Jango, Boba Fett's father. So every clone comes from Jango Fett. What's interesting just from a conceptual standpoint is that initially the Boba Fett character was supposed to be an army of soldiers and became one person. So that's kind of cool. But also when we were kids and before any of the prequel stuff came out, we had imagined that somehow the stormtroopers came from Boba Fett or came from something about him had to do with the stormtroopers. I just remember that there was always conversation around that as kids. It was like, oh, maybe Boba Fett used to be a stormtrooper or whatever it was. And so it's kind of cool how that became
there was
a thing.
There was no
backstory.
heavy lore on it. There's no, people weren't going off on the tangents, writing the fan works to the extended universe stuff yet. So, and you also have to think too, when we were kids, like internet wasn't necessarily a thing. So everything was just conjecture. We couldn't go look it up. We couldn't go get source material. So it was just like, if somebody said something, it's like, oh, well, you must have, that's a reliable, credible thing that you heard. And, and just like, build.
Like blowing into your Nintendo cartridge.
Or like, or like you get like a Cinefix magazine at the airport when you were flying somewhere, and it had Star Wars stuff on it. So you bought it, you read the article, and you're like, now I am an expert. 'Cause
Right.
I read this,
Yeah.
this one article.
Yeah.
Well, and two, it's it's armor, it's a helmet. I mean, the fact that they were designing it to be an Imperial, super soldier. There's tie-ins just visually, anyway, so I can get people saying, "Well, we don't see the face. We don't see these stormtroopers' faces. Who are any of these guys?"
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely checks out.
Wow, it's a loud truck outside. Solid.
And then
Can't
he goes and falls into a sand vagina.
Yeah.
Which I love, because I think we talked about.
Which I love.
The
I
old
love
sand
sand
giner. Well,
Love it.
I mean, you're in Boston.
it.
That's what most of what you're looking for, right?
Bro, we go down to the beach, we check out the sand vaginas, bro. It's awesome.
Which is funny because that's a huge contention between
drier the better.
originals and the remasters, right? Because in the originals, it's just like the teeth in the ground, but then in the remasters,
It's
They
actually
ruined
like
it with they had a
The
mouth
beak.
coming out.
beaky
Yeah.
mouth.
It was
and some
so
extra
much better,
tendrils.
just teeth and a hole. It's like that's all we need.
Again, you're in Boston. What more do you need? Teeth in a hole. Good Lord.
But
I'll
then
even
right,
take
then
no
You got
teeth.
teeth? Yeah, you got a hole. Cool. What's your number?
Are they your teeth? Doesn't matter.
So do you want to talk about
Whose teeth are those?
chapter 1?
What are you drinking? Yeah, so the thing about Boba Fett that made him so fascinating, so intriguing, and so interesting is that he didn't have a backstory. And he was this fully formed bounty hunter.
Does visually.
Visual,
See a
exactly.
backstory on
Yeah,
his helmet,
right.
on his armor. You go,
Yeah.
what's happened?
He's
to this
got the
guy?
braids on the shoulder. There's a lot going on in Boba Fett to suggest backstory, but you never talk about it. So that's why in chapter 1, it took me a minute to enjoy myself, because when he's introduced in The Mandalorian, he kind of gives the Mandalorian just quick high level, like, this is what happened to me. Give me my armor back. And now, for the first time ever, well, except for, I mean, you see him as a kid in the prequels and stuff, which to me is whatever. It kind of counts. Now we're giving him all the backstory. So the mystery is gone. The feared bounty hunter, why does he have a beef with Han Solo? Why is he working for the Hutts? All that stuff is I'm assuming getting explained through the flashbacks in the Bacta tank. And so I wasn't really enjoying it, because that's not really what drew me to the character, and that's not really what draws me to movies in general.
Right.
Is when you show me step by step the history of the character. And so
You
Even
like
then,
this
this isn't
mysterious
even-
guy? Let's lift the veil 100%.
Yeah.
And show you how he flosses and what kind of dungaroos he wears.
yeah.
Well, and that's the thing too. It's not it's backstory, but it's Second Life backstory.
Correct. Yes,
It's
you're
not.
correct.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not picking up his dad's head to putting Han in carbonite backstory. It's eaten by a sand vagina to not eaten by sand vagina
Yeah.
backstory. So it's like it's a second backstory, and I think that's where I had a hard time with episode 1 as well, because it was, it sets it up for this great thing, this great, like, okay, he's now the crime lord, and then they flash back to him and they explain the Sarlacc pit, which is super great, because that, I mean, if you weren't in all of the knowledgeable circles, there was always the how did he survive, right? And
Right.
then the Mandalorian shows his armor, and you're like, whoa, okay, so maybe the Sarlacc couldn't digest it because it's the metal.
Indigestible? Beskar.
Yeah, it's because so couldn't digest it. So like an owlet just spit
Mhm.
it out, and then the Jawas scavenged it, and then you find out that he survived. So it was like, all right, that's what I want. I must have this information. I want to know how that works. And then they show him doing like the, training with the locals, with the Tuscans, and it's like, did I need that? Like, I don't know. That was my hard part. I was like,
Right.
what? This has to go somewhere, but
Oh, it'll go somewhere.
Yeah, watching
no,
it, you're assuming that there's going to be some payoff. I think the first episode of anything, doesn't matter how much good or bad or what you know or don't know, it's a rough place to start.
Yeah. I expect pilots to be poop.
Yeah.
Now.
I mean, and this
Yeah.
this falls into the 3 episode, and at the time of recording, the 3rd episode is out.
Mm-hmm.
I have watched it. We won't talk about it, but you know my rule with the 3 episode try.
Mm-hmm.
It has passed the 3 episode try,
Yeah.
so I'm in.
Yeah.
But
It was just
yeah, no,
very.
it's super weird because it's like my other hard part too is that they put him in peril when he's with the Tusken Raiders, right?
Mhm.
They show him tied up. They're kind of beating up on him, but it's like, to me, it's the thing I don't like, which is the false peril, because it's like, well, we know he lives.
Mhm.
They
Well,
can
but see,
beat him
that's the
up and
thing,
stuff, but
though.
he
I think
doesn't die.
what we're building up, though, is the relationship between him and the Tuskens, and I think that
100%.
that's what's important, and that's what we're seeing is how does he get, because she shows up with the gaffy stick, and in the Mandalorian, so you're kind of wondering like what's going on here and why. The thing that was bumping me and at the beginning of the first episode of the first chapter is that Jeremy Bullock in 1981 was probably 30 pounds lighter than Tamira Morrison in 2021, you know?
Right.
And
Or the
so,
stunt guys, yeah, exactly.
yeah. Well, and Tamira Morrison this is 20 some years later from him playing Django as well. But he should be the age that he was then playing Boba Fett now. That's actually how old he should be. So we have to have full buy-in right now that he is that character, right now.
Yeah.
So, and it's fine because he kills it. He's so good and such a capable actor, and he's fantastic. And also, I find it fascinating that Jango Fett, the character he played in Attack of the Clones, was it Attack of the Clones? Was it the first time we saw him? The second prequel?
That's the only movie Django's in.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. So episode 2, they really have mushed
He has
together
a
for
little
me.
head fall off.
Yeah. Yeah. His little head. It's him as a character and as an actor. He basically encapsulates the entire universe up until episode 4 in terms of what we know of the Clone Wars and Rebels and everything that happens in between there. There's mentions of because it's his voice. I mean, it's not really actually Tamira Morrison's voice playing the characters in the Clone Wars, but we have become like clones are a huge part of the universe of the Star Wars universe now, to the point where like the Bad Batch and Captain Rex and all of these characters that we love, they're all him. And so, so he has to make Boba Fett its own entity without the armor.
Oh, absolutely.
In a way that I think is really challenging for an actor, but he's pulling it off, and I love it.
Well, it was interesting too. It's a very subtle in the Mandalorian. So in prep for Boba Fett, I rewatched the whole Mandalorian up to date. But when they meet the actual Mandalorians, and then Boba Fett comes in, there's like the subtlest mention of like, I know that voice kind of thing.
I've heard it a
Like-
1,000 times.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard. Right, it's one of those like, it's a clever line, but it's even more clever if you understand that the 1,000 is in reference to the millions of clones, not just she worked with some guy who just wouldn't stop talking. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it has that like little extra notch up, which is super good for the fan base. Yeah, and I think he's got, as Boba Fett, I mean, the physicality part I'm letting slide
Yeah, for sure.
because like he died, if you want to look at it that way. Like when he went into the Sarlacc pit, he died. So, and then he was held captive, and so I mean, you're allowed to put on some weight.
Right. He ate a lot in the Sarlacc.
Yeah, the
You know that-
Sarlacc wasn't the only one slowly digesting things.
Yeah. So that part I can go, but right, he does carry a he's got a stature when he moves, which I think is authentic to how it was in the original films.
Mhm.
Even though I know it's two completely different people, but they must have done some work with him, because when Boba Fett walks and he stands next to Vader in Cloud City and stuff, like there's certain like mannerisms that I think they may not be right, but they're triggering like my nostalgia button of like, oh yeah, that feels correct, as opposed to like, oh, it's a different guy.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I know it clearly is, but it hits those nostalgia buttons of like, oh yeah, okay, that's good. I'm good here.
yeah. The Jeremy Bullock walk, he does. He pulls it off, and it looks great.
Right.
It's really interesting because was it the 2011 versions of Star Wars? There was like another re-release, and they put Tamira Morrison. He ADR'd Boba Fett's lines.
Yeah,
So
did he? Oh,
yeah.
okay, nice.
Yeah. So the versions that are up on like Disney Plus that, like that, Huck's watching that, the Alfred's going to watch, they're all going to see the fully formed version of the movie.
Yeah.
The most late, the one that's been in the works for 40 years. Like that's the one.
Cloud City with Windows.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They're not gonna know the closed off Cloud City and the original music from Jabba's palace, unfortunately. Sure. Yeah.
They're stuck with that music video.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. It kind of made it worse, I think, even. Yeah.
When you spend that money to generate all the...
That was George Lucas. George Lucas. He's pretending he's like, I want to give something for the fans. And like secretly, he's like, you're all going to hate it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right.
He's just sitting in the back of the theater going, did you like it?
Because he did say that in the special edition, like behind the scenes, was I wanted to do I thought it would be funny if there was a whole musical number in Star Wars. And George, you're the only person who thought that was funny because no one else did. Right. Everyone else hated it a lot.
But that's what I'm saying is like that really why he loved it. He just loves screwing. He's just trolling everyone.
Yeah. His goiter was so big it was tainting his mind. But it was cool.
Since the 90s.
Pretty much. I love seeing the aftermath of Jabba's barge destruction. That was kind of fun, seeing the Sarlacc kind of dead and the barge kind of exploded all around him and everything.
The wreckage of the party barge.
Yeah, that was fun. And we already knew that the Jawas had acquired the armor, so that was fine. You kind of see some of that. But yeah, the Sand People stuff at the top was, you kind of knew that it had to be because he has the weapon with him.
Not necessarily. I mean, you could make the leap that he killed.
Steals it, right?
That's true.
Yeah, steals or killed. He came upon a camp and wiped him out.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you can make that leap there, but it's much better that he went through like a training with the samurai type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Was that chapter 2? Sorry, they're blending together. I rewatched them both. And 3.
The training part was in number 2 because the first one, he's out with the kid and he gets attacked by the centaur thing,
the lizard centaur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and so it feels sometimes like in the first episode there's just felt like a lot of space filler for some reason, and I don't know why I felt that way.
No, 100%.
Because they were walking through the village and there was the whole. So this one was directed by Robert Rodriguez, who is a very inspirational, filmmaker for me in a lot of ways, just because of what he's been able to accomplish as a entrepreneurial type of director. He does everything outside of Hollywood system, and it's just he's amazing to watch. Sometimes you wonder though, when someone gets to a certain level, are they really giving you the freshest take on stuff? And so when he gets attacked by these assassins and they're doing like parkour on the rooftops, I'm like, really? We're doing parkour still? Because it was cool in the first Daniel Craig Bond movie, and that was about 14 years ago. And I think we're good on the parkour, right? Am I wrong?
Well, the thing is,
I don't have any more chairs with the bottom cut out of them. I got rid of those years ago.
Couldn't do that scene.
That whole fight scene, it felt really awkward. I think it's because it was either the edits were too long, or they didn't speed up the choreography like they should have, because everything just felt like a bunch of old fat guys kind of like drunk swinging at each other.
It was just
felt really
poorly thought out, especially when you're like, oh, there's a shield wall created around him. Boy, if only he had a jetpack and could fly.
Yeah.
Well, and then
they didn't think that one through at all.
The thing that bugged me about that too was, so they make the huge deal about the two Gamoran guards
Yes,
that stick with him.
agreed.
And when
Right.
when they walk out of the mayor's office, they're there.
Racco and Gruko.
And then all of a sudden, they're having this talk of exposition, and they're nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
So it's like, wait, these two guards are like, I will be loyal no matter what. It's like they stepped outside and then they forgot their keys. I don't know. And
They'd go back
They
inside
just-
and get their
they just-
tusks.
Talk
yeah,
about
they just
them.
disappeared. And then the fight happens, and then out of nowhere they come charging up. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, I understand you need to do this, but like you missed either that or like don't have the Gamorreans. Like if I were to rewrite it, I would have had the Gamorreans come in later, save Boba Fett, and then like pledge fealty, because as like we were we served the boss, you are now the boss. May we serve you, kind of like earning or like earning their place type of like
Mhm.
proving their loyalty. Like the way they did it with the tribute, I thought was fine, but like because they were gone from that scene, it's like, what was this? Was that what they were going to do?
Yeah.
And then they were gonna have him come in, and then they were gonna pledge fealty, and they just like cut it weird. I don't know, but it was just that was one thing that bugged me with that fight was
Yeah.
like, where did those two guys go? They were literally right there.
That's so
You
funny
can
though.
see
It's the
'em.
very first thing I thought about when I'm watching it was these guys were behind them the entire time, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and then they make this valiant come, show
This
up and
dramatic
kill them.
save.
Yeah. Whereas, I think that's a much more interesting thing where they maybe made up their mind at that point or something like that. But yeah, there was a lot of that sort of, speed up. There's also a little bit about the world's expanding, so we're seeing more and more and more kinds of people and kinds of characters, and the guy who is the major domo of the mayor who shows up. I mean, that's the guy from the Sonic commercials. The
Okay,
duo in the
that's
Sonic
who-
commercials. There's
Is that who
the
that
baldish
is?
guy.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's bugging me. I'm like, I know.
Yeah.
The
And
straight man from
yeah, exactly. And a great actor and very capable and everything, it's a little much comedy. I felt for the moment where I was like, "Ooh, this guy's a lot for this moment in here." Great, don't get me wrong, great actor, love him,
Right.
hilarious.
It's kind of like it's like it's not a Taika Waititi thing. Like
Right.
I finally started watching What We Do in the Shadows, and that's like it goes very far, but it balances
Yeah.
right, and you can't like unless you just do a show that's a Star Wars show like that. Yeah, it's very hard to kind of have that level of taking the piss out of everything.
Yeah,
If that's not what you really want your full tone to be.
Well, and
Yeah.
it's weird too because chapter 1 is when they're doing all the fealty, right, where they're coming
Mhm.
in to pay tribute, and then
Yeah.
there's the so it's
Pledge
like,
to me.
so they don't bring tribute from the mayor, and then there's the misunderstanding of like, actually, you need to give us some stuff. This will come out later, but like that scene will rub you incorrectly once like they go meet the mayor, and then there's something that happens in chapter 3 that makes that whole scene just be like, who wrote this?
Mm.
Like they wrote it on an island. It didn't talk to the rest of the people
Hmm.
because of something that happens in chapter 3 would just
Hmm.
that first scene in chapter 1, that misunderstanding doesn't exist. Like that whole thing doesn't. It's just and I think that's why I'm having some issues with it. It's because I don't think they rushed it. I don't think they rushed production, but it doesn't
Not at all.
feel like they actually went back and like reconnected the crazy plotline yarn string things, because there's some stuff that happens where you're like, no, and we can talk about it when we talk about chapter 2. I can get into it, but it's something in there that rubbed me a little incorrectly, and it was just like that. So yeah, this first episode, it felt way too short. Like they didn't cover enough. Like they get the credits roll, and you're like, no, but wait,
Oh,
there's
right. It's where
gotta be
he
more.
begins to earn respect, right? And they're like, okay,
Mhm.
and cut
Hmm.
Yeah,
scene.
and it's like, wait, no, there's gotta be more to this. And then chapter 2 is super long, and you're like, what the hell is going on? But no, it's I like it though. I think it feels like when Clone Wars did the 3 episode about disrupting the banking system, and one of those like super deep cuts of Star Wars stuff where like, well, we can't just have Ewoks and Jawas and laser sword battles and like, we're gonna try to give you some substance here and set some things up, but it's gonna be a little bit of a walk to get there. And I think, unfortunately, chapter 1 and 2 are making that walk. And like we were talking earlier, like the Grogu hasn't shown up yet. Baby Yoda hasn't shown up yet. So there's nothing in here necessarily that I think is going to capture the same crowd. I think they're going to start losing crowd.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, I'm still going to watch it. Just I would probably still watch it to conclusion in general.
Oh yeah.
But I think it's definitely one of those like a little bit more like I'm not going to necessarily watch it on Wednesday. I'll put it that way. Like it might be like, it's Saturday.
Oh, crap,
Let's check it
I need
out.
to get that in before the next podcast.
I think so.
Yeah.
Versus The Mandalorian was like, I don't care what you're doing. The Mandalorian's on right now. Stop, put everything down and watch immediately.
I mean,
Honey,
this is
your
gonna be
water
like,
can
should we
break later.
Yeah, right.
Put that water back in there.
The baby's crying. He'll continue to cry. It's fine.
Well, that's the.
Babies have cried for thousands of years, babe.
Most of them lived. It's fine.
He's teething, maybe. I don't know. When does teething start?
Ugh, now.
When you think
Are
about
you
the.
in teething? Oh boy.
Oh boy, that's
I'll
good.
pray for you.
That's what the nipples are for.
That's what part of last night was. We think is
Yeah.
a little constipation and a little teething.
There you go.
Oh boy.
You add those two together, and
Well, if I'm constipated and maybe I got a toothache, I'm gonna cry inside.
fair.
But if you were around with your nipple, I wouldn't cry.
I just get hungry.
Just get hungry hippo.
I just mouth start watering.
But speaking
No, I
of nipples,
want to be king of the hill, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
put a crown on me.
So that's my take on chapter 1 is that
Yeah.
I love the explanation of how he survives.
Yeah.
I thought that was super cool.
Oh yeah.
I love
I was
the-
fine with that.
Yeah.
They handled like how did the Jawas get the armor? Yeah, that makes sense. But then the whole roping in for chapter 1, the roping into the Tusken Raiders is kind of like, well, this is interesting. Like, what are you going to do with this? And then the whole
Right.
like
They could have ended episode 1 with he gets captured by Tuskens. And then you're
Yeah.
like, uh-oh. Yeah, that would have been
right. So it's kind of like,
stronger
what
cliffhanger.
are you doing here? And then
Like he's got to get an army of Tusken, all the tribes together, so they can fight the Hutt army. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe not. Who knows?
allegedly,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. It's like when they're doing the current stuff where he is taking over as the crime boss of, it's not Mos Eisley, it's Mos
Mos
Espa.
Espa.
Yeah, so he's taking over as the crime boss of Mos
Pretty
Espa.
cool.
That is like okay, but then they have these like back to tank flashbacks, which we don't know how long ago they were necessarily, but they're just that they're going somewhere with it, but the way it's being delivered is just out of place. It's out of pace a little bit to the point where you're like, what's happening? Why? Like why? What?
At least in the first episode, that's how it certainly felt.
In the frame and scope of episode 1, it's like, why are we doing this? Okay.
And my brain hurts a little bit watching the show with flashbacks that took place, a year ago or whatever, in the timeline of the world, because we've suddenly intersected. So the time frame that this movie is taking place in, at least the Tusken stuff, is during basically the battle
Jedi.
of the second, the second Death Star battle. That's when all of this is happening. So,
Right.
He's captured by the Tuskens at the exact same time that, Luke and Han and Leia are on Endor. Like that's where we're at right now.
Right.
And then, but we know that the Mandalorian is taking place, shortly after Return of the Jedi?
I can't remember.
I don't remember how
Well,
long ago.
Yeah, because
Or is it the months,
in
or is it
episode 2 when he has the cowboy shootout with Timothy Oliphant, they talk about when the Death Star blew up the second time.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit after that. So yeah, we're right in the middle of like Jedi.
Well, we know it's post Empire. Like we know that at the very beginning, we know it's post Empire because that's the whole thing is that they're, dealing with the aftermath of that and everything. But the thing is, by Cara Dune's first episode, which is like episode 3 or 4 of Mandalorian,
Yeah.
she's already been through quite a bit of peacekeeping and stuff like that. And so that's why she retired, essentially, is she was tired of going to other planets and trying to maintain order as the New Republic takes over. So
Right.
if it feels like it, I thought that it was like we were working with years after Return of the Jedi, but maybe not. I should just look it up on the internet since I have Google.
I'm sure somebody's done it together. Yeah. But it makes
actually, it's 49 YYD. I can't
Yeah.
remember what they call it.
BBY.
BBY.
Yeah, so it says, so Mandalorian takes place in 9 ABY after the Battle of Yavin.
Yavin?
So that would be 5 years after Return of the Jedi. At least that's what just the first hit here
That's
says.
which one?
And where's Force Awakens?
So 5 years after the
That's
Return
like
of the Jedi.
30,
And
Is it?
Force
35.
Awakens.
Because they pretty much just do it true to
Oh yeah, because they had enough time
because
for
Han
30
and Leia
years.
all have to,
Kids,
they're all
right.
old now, so they have
Mhm.
to play it true to the actors' ages.
Yeah.
That's true.
So if the first episode of The Mandalorian is 5 years after Return of the Jedi, which makes sense, which is kind of where I had placed it, we're seeing flashbacks between concurrent with Mandalorian, which is what's
Yeah.
going on Mos Espa and the whole taking over Jabba's reign, and then his flashbacks in theory are 5 years previous to that, which would have been when he was sent into the Sarlacc pit, into
Okay.
the dry vagina.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that happens in 5 years. Like, there's just a lot of stuff that happens in 5 years, and I think, I mean,
Don't get me started, girlfriend.
right. Well, they're not. I mean, they're doing a good job of not saying like 5 years ago. Like, there's no reference to time in the show, so you don't
Mhm.
get any of that. So you kind of have to
Yeah.
figure it out. But because right, you don't know how long he was without his armor. You know, you
Mhm.
don't know how long he was with the Tuskens. You don't know that kind of
Right.
information.
Yeah, even by episode 2, you're going, how long's it been? Has it been a couple of weeks, or has this been many months?
Mhm.
Yeah, it's very loosey-goosey, so...
Yeah.
But it's good. I mean, from a pilot standpoint, it's good. It addresses right away questions like, how does he survive? What happens to his armor? Like, I thought he died in the Sarlacc pit. I think they
Right.
cover that, and then they do a good job of introducing some like, the whole Tusken flashback thing is like, all right,
Mhm.
what are we
Mhm.
gonna do here? And then they introduce current stuff. We're like, oh yeah, you can't just become a crime boss.
Right.
You can't just be like, I do this now. Like,
Yeah.
No, you're not the mailman. You don't just
So that's
I
kind of
killed
what we're.
Bib Fortuna, therefore everyone bow down to me. We don't care. Bib Fortuna, yeah, okay, sure.
So that's also where I kind of go timeline wise, where there's going to have to be some explanation, whether it's retcon or whatever they're going to do to explain why the Mandalorian managed to make it to Tatooine and find Boba Fett's armor when Boba Fett's been on Tatooine this entire time in Mos Espa or in and around the area, and he didn't know that there was some guy walking around with his armor
I think he
a few
does,
miles
though,
away.
Doesn't he?
Does he?
Isn't like, oh, that guy seemed like a good guy, so I didn't mess with him. I thought there was some throwaway line, but maybe not.
I don't know.
I didn't rewatch. You rewatched Mandalorian.
I did, but I don't recall. I don't recall him making any reference to Oliphant's character, only because of how ardent he is with getting it from the Mandalorian,
Mm-hmm.
which is how like, it's mine, it's my birthright, and then he shows him the little register. So I think if he had known that the sheriff was wearing it,
Mm-hmm.
he would not have been wearing it for very long.
It's like how
Yeah.
Han and Chewie found the Millennium Falcon magically the second it goes into space in Force Awakens, because you need to bring the character. That's when they wanted to bring the character in. You know, it's
Yeah.
like they
The
can't-
galaxy is a
there's
big
no-
place.
Yeah.
There's no
The fact that this all takes place on like 9 planets, just disregard.
Well, but that's
this
what.
one's gonna take place on Tatooine. Woo! Gonna be a thriller.
That's what makes it even more
God, I
just
hope
kind
they get
of
off planet.
like, huh? Like, how would Boba Fett not have found his armor already? Because it's all taking place in. It would be like if it was here where I live, Fort Morgan, Brush, and Wiggins. Like that's what we're talking about here.
Well, except
know?
Oh, it was in Weldona. I wouldn't have ever thought to look at Weldona.
Hillrose.
You got me.
In fairness to the writing, you can make the assumption that there is more than one Java trawler out there in the Dune Sea, right?
I mean,
so
Mandalorian set up that they're on different planets, so that crap.
so like
it's been franchised.
Oh yeah.
So you've got the whole like, I mean, the thing didn't have a license plate, right? So it's not like he could go to the DMV and track it down. So they may show him
I'm
going
looking
from
for
trawler
these
to
guys.
trawler,
Oh, they all look
or
the
like
same to you, don't they?
yeah, right, or like roughing up the Jawas to find his armor, and they may have that. They may have like a Find My Armor episode where he is going through that. But then, if you remember from The Mandalorian, your favorite character, Amy Sedaris, talks about how
before the war,
before the war, that city was like lost to the maps and all that kind of stuff. So, maybe it's just not in his Google search.
oh, gotcha. Yeah, you're right. I forgot about that. I've
Yeah,
tuned
it's
out
some
her character,
weird
so
place. It's the first time they've referenced that place where
like
we
Moss
all find-
Tingles or something.
yeah, Moss Dingleberries. Yeah. I love actually Moss Dingleberries. It's right next to Anchorhead, I heard. Good town.
Yeah, but so there's, it's not a casual episode. I'll put it this way: if you were in love with the Mandalorian because Baby Yoda was so cute, Book of Boba Fett is not for you.
Right.
It just isn't. This is some deep cut fringe content.
Right. But also, I think the thing, I was talking to a friend at work, and like he knew, and of course I knew, this is Disney-owned Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
So where it's like, I think even people that are like, we're going to get like The Sopranos in Star Wars, you're like, no.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
Nope.
going to be a kind of they're going to take the fangs out of Boba Fett, whatever you thought fangs he could have had, and you're going to get something like you watch the Loki show, right? This is what we're going to get. We're going to get, he's the anti-hero, kind of.
Well, he's already softened up quite a bit because that's the other thing, right?
Softened times a trillion, yeah.
Is that we know the Boba Fett from The Mandalorian, where he kind of saves Finnick and he gets his armor back, but he has a debt to the Mandalorian for giving him his armor back, yada, yada. We're going to help you find the baby, all that great stuff. Mm-hmm. It's great. Great redemption of the character.
You still have a feeling of it's only honor that's keeping him from doing something like that. You still have some feeling that, oh, he could do something terrible.
Exactly.
He's not going to with these guys.
And so the Boba Fett that came out of the Sarlacc pit is actually the Boba Fett that had just recently sold Han Solo to Jabba the Hutt. So that was the exact same guy. So the guy we're seeing in the sand dunes, in the Dune Sea that's the guy who had previously just loaded up Han Solo into Slave One and dropped him off at Jabba's palace. So he was a pretty bad guy 14 seconds ago, and now he's making friends with kid sand people. So it's so you've already had to kind of revise your idea of who he is based upon the Mandalorian to get to the point where we're okay with him being this semi-noble character. Although he could have been much more complex in real life.
He was technically a bounty hunter, so one could argue he's just doing his job. You know. Mm-hmm. So I mean, you do have to be a little ruthless. He doesn't care about good or bad. Yeah. Right. You do have to be a little ruthless to do that kind of work. But I don't think he's a villain. That's a
good point.
There's a lot of people that, the Empire wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Mm-hmm. In some people's, there are.
Here we go, Nico again with the Empire wasn't
this
so
Empire
bad.
wasn't bad argument.
No, but you know what I'm saying though. They're like, they were just. Yeah. He was just doing his job. So, but you have to. Do it.
The sewage systems that they put in.
Right. The infrastructure is amazing.
That Monty Python, Life of Brian. Yeah. What have the Romans done for us? I mean, they put in sewage system. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm almost tapped out of my chapter 1 stuff because 2 and 3 get better, but chapter 1 I think I've said what I need to say.
I think if I would sum it up myself, Rodriguez had a reputation for being under time and under budget.
Hmm.
And I look at that episode and I get, well, he delivered on those.
Yeah, done and
baby.
done.
Yeah.
You know, and it is bizarre because while so many shows that get a proper pilot and then get picked up later have the luxury of saying, well, things change. They knew they were doing this show. So episode 1 is not really a pilot. It's the beginning of what they know they're going to make.
Mm-hmm.
So it is confusing. I think like his power level, you don't have any clue. You go, does this guy suck? Can he not fight? Who is this guy?
Especially with the back to tanks, yeah.
Right. And I guess, I mean, he did the way he fell into the sand vagina. I guess it's canon. Like, you look at him and you go, wow, that dope went out like a real weenie in Return of the Jedi. So I guess that's a continuation.
Mm-hmm. Correct. That is interesting. Before we end it though, why was there a stormtrooper in the bottom of the Sarlacc?
There's a trooper that gets sliced. No.
There's no stormtroopers in Sarlacc in the sand barge.
Implied that it's just like Tatooine troopers some other time that fell in maybe after him or before.
So maybe
because they all just
the thousands of years of digestion.
Thousands of years. So the guy's dead, yet somehow there's still air in his helmet.
I don't know. That's what I'm saying.
So maybe he just fell in.
It was an interesting choice.
Just let that go.
Well, but the thing is though that there was so many options though, because you could have picked any of the characters that fell in.
Dudes.
Yeah,
and there were dudes that have helmets, like random looking dudes.
There's so many people that fell into the Sarlacc before Boba did that would have been fantastic, or even after that would have been a fantastic little member berry to throw in there. The guy with the thingy in the face or whatever, the guy with the weird helmet. Or what's his name? Lando's weird helmet. Throw that in there. Yeah, exactly. There's so many. It's funny because there's when we talk about.
You could look it up. It's probably one of those like deep cut Easter eggs.
I'm thinking we're just supposed to assume it's one of the guys who are looking for loot for the droids in Episode 4 in A New Hope. I'm assuming that's what we're supposed to assume.
Be the guys investigating, hey, what's this giant wreck out here? Where'd the Empire? What happened here? So they go,
maybe.
and then one of them falls in the sand vagina looking too close.
Right. He's never seen one before. But I just think that there's a lot of member berries.
Hey, gosh, check me out.
Whoa! At least I have air.
God, the thing's dead and he still fell in. What a loser.
I just think that there's so many
T-35
member berries in chapter 2 that we'll get to here that were just unnecessary, and then they couldn't even throw in a nice Sarlacc member berry to give us a moment because we didn't need to assume that Boba couldn't breathe under there because there was light coming in from the top. So I'm just like, of course he can breathe. There's light coming in, so that wasn't necessary in my opinion. It would have been fine if he just came to.
Methane, like stomach gas and
right.
Digestive.
That's what I was assuming is like it's real thick in there with something. And he's been out for long enough that his oxygen tank is depleted, and it's playing with that trope of like, oh no, I'm in space and I just woke up and my tank's going beep beep like the Martian.
Yeah, true, for sure.
It may sound like we're being picky little B words, but the truth is,
we Star Wars fan
it's true.
B word.
It's true. But we love you, Dave Filoni. We love you, Jon Favreau and Robert Rodriguez, and we love the whole show so far. But I will say that this is the first time of the new Star Wars stuff that I've watched the pilot and was like, maybe I'll skip this show. It was the first time. And it's just because the pilot was like, you had me at parkour. I was like, nope. Because there's
that
two.
Fight was rough.
It was rough.
Yeah.
with
That
first with the
wasn't
shields,
that wasn't
yeah,
their best work.
and then it was, but that was the under time under budget nonsense where it's like, well, let's just get some
Well,
poor
and
parkour guys
so-
and do that.
Let's just do it, and then
So-
the guards will save the day. Yeah, I love it.
Last stab at that fight before we move on is they weren't supposed to kill him, right? Like just the mechanics of that fight. So they set up the shields. They've got like stun batons, and they just keep hitting him.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know what their plan is.
Nobody's
right?
got a
Mhm.
blaster. Nobody's
Right.
got a net. Nobody's got like they're just kind of hitting each other with sticks. But you find out that this is like this universally renowned assassins guild. Like,
Yeah.
you guys are terrible.
Yeah.
that's why that fight just it was cut super long, so
Yeah.
you could see how slow they were all moving. And then you think about the fight, right? The parkour, and you're just like, well, what was the end goal here? The only funny part about that fight is when finally Boba gets knocked down and he just explodes that guy on the side of the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says to Finnick, alive. Like, okay, whatever.
But that also felt a little bit Indiana Jones, like in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Maybe Tamura had diarrhea that day, so they just needed to use a rocket and blow a guy up. That's what it felt like.
It was so weird.
It was
Like,
just so weird. It was so out of
weird.
place. It was just so sudden. And also, we're seeing that happen. Again, spoiler alert on the next few episodes where people seem to be showing up a lot to kill Boba Fett with like just things that electrocute you or like tasers. It's very weird. It's very strange. I don't know.
Maybe the New Republic is like you can only have a taser.
Cracking down on guns.
Did they burn the libraries?
Yeah.
So,
Did they burn the books? There's no knowledge.
They're a bunch of lefties banning guns, banning blasters. Bunch of jerks.
Woof.
That's what
Yeesh.
happened.
Right.
Well, thanks for listening, folks. That's chapter 1. That's our return to the podcast. I'm excited to be back.
Return.
I hope
Oh,
you guys are
like
excited to be
Fennec.
back.
I want to throw that in.
Yeah,
I'm
definitely.
Glad Fennec is there.
Fennec
She's
sounds
wonderful. She's wonderful. Great actor as well. Big fan of the character. But yeah, that's chapter 1 of the thing, and we'll be back next week with chapter 2, unless you're on the live stream right now. We're doing chapter 2 right now. But first, I have to write down in my notes 10854. Okay,
Do you want to
watch
do you wanna-
this.
bark?
I got 3-person overlay. Chapter 2 overlay. There we go.
Internet's taking a minute to catch up. It's gone. Wait, there it is. Hey.
Hey. We were mentioning at earlier that so Nico came to the rescue. So Sarah's kiddo is 6 going on 7, and so we're doing Disneyland this year.
That's
in
what
April
I assume.
with
though.
the
I was like,
family.
Disney sounds like Disney's coming.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was telling him a little bit about the place where you build lightsabers and everything, and he was fascinated. So he's asking me questions I couldn't answer because I hadn't been there. So I started texting Nico, and he was like, "Here, I'll just FaceTime you." And he FaceTimes us, and so he walked Huck through all of the different lightsabers because Nico's got all of them. And I mean, do you have all of them?
Oh.
I mean, all
One of each of the major.
I have I have
four
one
sects?
each of the flavor, but there are multiple pieces per piece that you can make. So I have of the 3 brands, I guess, I have one of each brand.
What are the 4 flavors?
I don't know the official types, but essentially there's Jedi Guard, Jedi Knight, what you would argue is like Dark Side or Empire, and then one that's like natural. So it's got the one, I think we talked about this a while back when I first made them, but like the natural one, the bottom part has 2 pieces. It's either a cap or like a Rancor tooth. And I remember joking with the guy at the workshop. I was like, so does anybody even not choose the Rancor tooth? And he's like, we have so many of those things. Like the other one, he's like, the tooth is just
Nobody's
too
done-
cool.
Yeah.
Like, why would you not do the
Yeah.
tooth, man?
Yeah, only the guy that already got the tooth once will come back and then get the other one.
Yeah.
Right.
So I have one of each flavor.
Does it also have like Tom's toothpaste cap on the end of the natural one?
Yes. Yeah. Right.
You could put the little metal cover piece underneath it first, and then screw the cap on. So it's always
Yeah,
fresh,
yeah.
always fresh and minty.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Naturally.
Organic tampon box. On.
Yeah, yeah. But it was fun.
Right,
It was fun walking him
Huck,
through
Huck was
everything.
great because you were asking me questions, and I'm sitting there typing it out, going, "Oh man, this is gonna be so much easier in person."
Yeah.
Just hang on.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got on FaceTime, and Huck was great. Very polite young man.
Yes,
Good
he's very
job,
polite.
Sarah. My favorite part was I have two questions for you.
Yes.
First question.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you. Your second question.
yeah. And
I
my other
have
question.
one more question to go. It's great. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah.
He was
Oh,
very
it's like
attentive,
that.
very
It's that
polite.
good age where like a kid wants to be an adult and they're not a little weenie yet.
Yeah. He's a perfect
that
age
perfect
for
age.
all of this stuff too, just because it's such a fascinating world, and it's real to him. It's in that moment, time where it's not
that's
just
what I
movies,
was
it's
trying
real.
to.
Sincerity at this age.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
love
didn't
it.
want to spoil the magic because the entire Galaxy's Edge experience is unlike the rest of the park, where as soon as you crossed into Galaxy's Edge, all of the staff members are in character.
Right.
And so it is like if you walked into Tomorrowland or whatever, it's just a bunch of like 18-year-old kids running Autopia. They're smelling the fumes off of the Autopia cars. The guys doing the Star Tours are like, "Hey, everybody, pew pew pew," and like that's it.
Yeah.
But when you walk into Galaxy's Edge, it's a completely different tone. Everyone they are in a Star Wars outpost that is recovering from the First Order, and so everyone talks in that phrase and that tone. And the lightsaber experience is these it's been a bit. They're basically these scavengers or these collectors that are just they're scrounging up pieces that wink wink secretly become lightsabers. So when you go to the experience, they pull open this like junk drawer of things you choose from, and then you get this like little secret pin that you wear, and then when you go in, that pin basically says which one of the 4 types you've chosen.
Gotcha.
But they've got this amazing presentation. They talk about the history of lightsabers and who wielded them. You get to choose your kyber crystal. It's an experience. It's not just like walking into the gift shop and be like, "I'd like the blue one, please." It's not like that, which is fantastic. So when I was talking to Huck, I didn't want to come off as like business answer. I wanted to try to embrace some of the magic of it. I was saying, when you get to see the crystals that they've recovered, and they're all these different colors, and then they talk about what they mean. And when you choose your lightsaber pieces, you put it together and they'll help you. And so I didn't want to be like, "Oh, it's it's an assembly line thing, or it's a die cast cut aluminum, and you just choose the ones you want."
Right.
And if you answer wrong, they will pull you into a room and beat the living crap out of
That
you.
too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You'll die.
Because it's still
So-
Star Wars.
Well,
Yeah,
it's
and it's-
funny because he'll still every now and then, because he asked you a couple times, but are they real lightsabers? Like, are they real? Like, can you cut things with them? And it's
I'm
funny.
going to Disneyland. They
Yeah,
better have
it
the
better be a real
one.
lightsaber. Yeah. No, you did a great job of perpetuating the magic and allowing it to be a real thing. And once he's there, obviously, it's going to really see how, it's going to be an immersive experience.
Oh, his head is
for
going to
sure.
explode.
Yeah, it's going to be great. Yeah.
It's I can't wait for Alfred to get to that point where I will get to relive the magic through him experiencing the magic for the first time.
Yes.
So
That's been a lot of fun watching Huck discover Star Wars for the first time and discover all the characters. And you know who his favorite character is of all the characters? Ahsoka Tano.
That's right. I did know that.
Yeah, he loves Ahsoka Tano. He thinks that she's the best. And I'm like, I love that because she is like one of the best.
She's arguably
one of the best characters, in the whole situation. So it's cool to have a newish character also kind of be his favorite, because it means that there is tremendous cohesiveness in the galaxy, especially through because he only really knows the Mandalorian version of her. But that's the thing though, is that
cool version. Yeah.
and I think that she might really, within the live action world of Star Wars, she might actually have the best lightsaber scenes of all the Jedi, in the entire, because the Clone Wars stuff, and some of the Rebel stuff is really good. But it's animated, so that's something else. But she definitely has the best stuff. Because really, because we've only ever seen her as an animated character wielding a lightsaber that well. So you kind of had to have some really killer choreography when it comes
Well,
to
She's
that.
she's a dual lightsaber.
Mm-hmm.
She runs a kimbo. So yeah, that's a whole different aspect because the original lightsaber was just a single sword, samurai style, that kind of thing with the grip and everything. And then, they kind of blew our minds with Darth Maul being like, what?
Mm-hmm.
This double-ended saber. And then you had even like Darth Sidious or Count Dooku with like the curved handle. And it's like, well, that's interesting. So they started just getting in these different iterations. And then
Like, well, he's old. That's what happened.
yeah, but then she was she was the first one, not the first probably, but like the most popular, the dual saber user.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And,
I'm trying to think if Asajj Ventress, she maybe did too.
Yes, she
before
does.
that. Yeah.
But that's
again,
it's in the
yeah,
same
that's-
time frame as Ahsoka Tano though. So it's not that's
right.
not a chicken egg scenario. That's a same time scenario, parallel.
I think that's interesting too, though, that she's such a fascinating character because at first she wasn't really liked that well because she was very bratty and teenagery, and she
Hey, Sky Guy.
yeah
Like, everyone's like, ugh.
oh boy. But she emerged as this character especially by the end of Clone Wars, the 2020 version, which was 4 years after they stopped making it. Was there like a big old
They
gap or
pulled the
something?
plug when Disney bought it.
Yeah. And so returning to the character, just so much more of a fully formed character and lover, and then Rosario Dawson just knocks it out of the park like crazy and just makes a really, really fun
And
character.
yeah,
Oh,
the
we got
fact
a-
that it's
Got a YouTube comment. Luke said Liam's first Spider-Man costume, he didn't understand why he couldn't shoot webs.
Yeah, exactly. Why? It's
right,
a real
what's going on?
It's a real
I'm
Spider-Man
wearing
costume.
the thing. Why can't I do the
What's the
stuff?
problem? Yeah.
Right. That's that magic, right? That's a funny little thing in Spider-Man No Way Home, but that's a whole separate conversation.
Oh, I still need to watch that.
Yeah, we're a Star Wars
Dude,
only
oh.
podcast. Hello.
So minor timeout. 5 out of 5. It is.
Nice.
You gotta see it.
All right.
Anyway, time in. Game on. I don't even know what we're talking about.
Ahsoka Tano. But Eric, you were saying
right.
something about her previous, because we were just discussing how she was kind of.
So yeah, with Rosario Dawson, I mean, I feel like sometimes if there's some continuation of a character or something, it's like the wrong person could deal with it, but the fact that it was Filoni and Favreau that were ushering the live action Ahsoka in, it's like you kind of knew, okay, they're not going to screw it up.
Yeah.
The right people are dealing with it, and they gave her the right gravity, and having that in the fog fight,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
thing, it was like, yeah, this is pretty awesome. Yeah,
Well, I think
did
it's
really
interesting
well.
too, because
Yeah.
the meeting Ahsoka Tano was the Mandalorian's first exposure to Jedi,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
but it was also extremely well handled because it was probably a lot of the audience's first exposure to Ahsoka Tano.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like you have to set the tone of her immediately,
Mm-hmm.
but also not upset the people that are fully aware of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they
Right.
with her, all of her stuff, they crushed. And I thought you're right. They gave Rosario Dawson. She did her homework. Her handlers did the homework. They gave her the absolute right direction and character and scope, and said, "We will allow you some play in here, but you got to hit these notes like this." And she like smashed. I can't wait for the Ahsoka live action because
Right.
it's a high, like the bar is through the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Already.
yeah. That one, the bar will be high. Where like Boba Fett, I had no bar. I really had. I was
Yeah,
like,
fair point.
oh, this dude hanging out on the desert forever, cool.
Right.
So I wasn't excited even.
Yeah,
for the
Space
show,
Goodfellas.
frankly.
Here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Which is maybe
But-
why I enjoyed chapter 2, which is what we're talking about in this episode. why I enjoyed it, because the bar was so low after episode 1, or chapter 1 rather. Coming into chapter 2, kind of didn't expect a whole lot, and it was good, and I enjoyed it. But it had some moments that were a bit Firefly, and
Sure.
a little bit Mandalorian, because with the train heist sort of feel. I mean, that was like the biggest, episode of Firefly, or I think they debuted with it, was the train heist, and it was the same sort of thing. And then you had the episode where they're on top of the tank, the one with Bill Burr in season 2 of The Mandalorian. Very similar feel. So a couple things going on there. Yeah. And in a way, I felt like this episode was just how many banthas can we kill? Because it felt like every 2 seconds they were just
and
like,
how many do they have?
Yeah.
Or my biggest question, how many raiders are in this tribe? Because a lot of them got killed, and there still seems to be a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Like, where are these guys coming from?
Yeah, and it doesn't.
The miners? Oh, let's bring up slabs and splooms. Yeah, we got to bring them up to the majors now, because
Splabs and sploobs. Pull his little neck dangly off. You can have it, Splabs.
That's crazy interesting
what
too,
their
because
names are.
there's a
think they
lot
have
of in chapter 2, there was a lot of suspension of disbelief, and what I mean by that is like that they show that train moving insanely fast.
Mm-hmm.
The whole, like, so he's at the camp, and the kid who he's kind of become buddies with, his whole job is to like signal them when they've taken the train or whatever, or when the train is safe to counterattack.
Right.
And it's like, wait, if this
the
thing
amount
is
of
moving,
ground that needs to be covered.
Mm-hmm.
to
right,
pull off
like, is this
heist.
thing just going in circles? Like, oh, yeah, I
Right.
guess that would be annoying if it just went around its way.
Hey, kids, start running
distance.
800 miles an hour.
Well,
It's
and
insane.
Get where you need to be.
they're being told the justification at one point for the reason why this train is going at high speeds and picking off Tusken Raiders is because they're protecting their route. So, the Tuskens can just go somewhere else. I'm pretty sure the Dune Sea is big enough, so I don't see why they're even hanging out in that route.
Hey, that's their little bit of
Yeah.
sand.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in a desert, you know how much you
It's a good
like
point.
That one little spot of
I'll
sand.
let-
I just love
keep,
this
keep
one
going, 'cause I've got a
spot.
comment. Yeah.
The banthas die, but then two, it's clearly just an 1800s.
Yes.
We're driving through the plains shooting buffalo from the train thing. So I get that, but if they really were protecting their route, they're traveling at like 400 miles an hour. And the Tuskens
They
can
can just
clearly
keep
not get on there without speeders, which they didn't have. So that whole
the fact
justification
that
is
they start
moot.
shooting, you're just like,
Yeah.
That's
a-hole
what I was
Yeah.
gonna
for
say. It's
being
like,
a-holes.
why?
Let's just shoot at them.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Just
It's
picking
like
them off.
the whole thing was like they're out playing around, right? The Tuskens are having a little sandball game, and then they look in the binoculars and they see the train coming, but they're in this like valley of dunes.
Mhm.
Like, just don't pop your head over the dune and then no one gets shot. It's not
Right.
like
Exactly.
it's not like the
Just
train
lay
goes
low.
right through their the tent. It's in the distance. Just let it pass, man. Like, there's no reason you guys are even having a fight.
No.
Whatsoever.
No.
Right. Yeah. They could have devised a different way of saying people keep impeding on us and on our land.
Mhm.
and
I mean,
we
they
want
could have-
to stop.
It
And,
would have been
yeah, how do
better
you do
if
it?
the
Yeah.
train had
wasn't the best.
stopped
Yeah.
and had offloaded machinery to like harvest the sand.
Sure.
That's when you're like, okay, now I understand why you guys fight.
Yeah.
But
Let's
when
go
it's just
full
like
Dune.
blasted boo, like, and why? I don't understand why they were shooting at each other. I didn't get it
Right.
the whole time. I was like, why just the train comes at noon? Just go to sleep, like,
And
just
put
stay
your
in your
banthas
tent.
away, man.
Yeah.
Put your damn
Yeah,
banthas
tuck-
away.
How
Tuck
many
the
times I gotta
banthas
tell you?
away.
Put your banthas away. Come on.
It just it
Well,
did.
yeah.
I mean, I get the whole like they're on our land nature
Meh.
of that, but like the logistics of it is just like
It's true.
It's a lot of
Come on,
land.
Like, if you want to do this analogy, yeah, it's like the fight in episode 1. It's like you
yeah,
gotta
and also
think it through
their
a little bit.
camp isn't that big. That train's moving too damn fast for them to even be a problem. It'd be like
give
the
a-
train's coming. Okay, it's gone.
Yeah.
All right, well, that sucked for 5 minutes.
But the heist itself was quite fun.
It's
I
fun.
enjoyed it. It was fun to see the kind of good, the good stunt woman.
Right.
What are they called? Sand people do their thing. Like that was fun. It was great. It was
Yeah.
funly choreographed, slightly funny because he had the funny little droid, and stuff like that. So it was driving the train. It was an enjoyable episode in that
It
respect.
was the right mix of high stakes, playing in a different genre. It's Star Wars, what Star Wars is supposed to be.
And it
It's a bang,
does-
bang boom.
In defense of it,
Bing bang boom.
it does set up the rest of the show.
Yes.
Oh, for sure.
Having
I
seen
would
episode
imagine.
3, the train heist needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
The results of the heist need to happen. Just the mechanisms to get there were just way too clunky.
I wonder if there is any homage happening. I don't know exactly what's going on with.
Well, they had the
What-
train heist in Solo.
Yeah, there's just two.
And
There's
it's the Pike,
yeah,
the same.
Same group.
people, right?
Right. That's
Mhm.
that's the tie-in I'm talking about. It comes up
Mm-hmm.
again and again and again.
But I
And
think
it's-
that
but-
there's also because there's the scene where Boba Fett had previously seen this biker gang
Yep.
go beat up or go steal a bunch of stuff from a house and drive away in
From the
episode
Lars
in chapter
homestead.
1. Yeah, in what looked like
Yeah.
the Lars homestead in chapter 1. And so then he sees the bikes and he follows them to a bar, the biker bar, and he
Yeah.
goes in and he beats him up. And it just reminded me so much of Superman, the 70s Superman, when he's in the diner and after he gets
when
his
he goes
powers
back and
back,
messes
he
with
walks
the
back in
trucker.
and beats him up. Yeah, it just had that feeling. I know that he was going to get the bikes and all that stuff, but there's just some interesting kitschy stuff like that where you kind of have the nerdy couple sitting there getting picked on and stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just feels filler. Like there's not this. Mandalorian was so imaginative, and it was so everything felt fresh in a way, and it really reinvigorated my love for Star Wars. There's things going on in these first 2 episodes that are making me go, yeah, I could take the show or leave it. Really,
No, absolutely. And it's like the second one was a tough watch too because it was like an hour and some change.
Yeah.
It was much longer,
Mm-hmm.
but not in the way you want it to be.
Right?
Like,
Yeah.
it was just longer and like because when they do the training montage, super cool. They do the lizard nasal spirit walk,
Ah.
like all right, kind of cool. Which is the tribal thing. Like it's very dances with wolves. Like
Yeah.
he goes and he gets his stick, which is then fashioned into his weapon. Okay, it's similar to the way that the Jedi go get their kyber crystal. That kind of fun.
I like that.
It's a nice little thing. But you're right. There's my brain, my stupid brain,
It's
can't
not stupid. It's beautiful. Your beautiful
get
mind.
past the logistical parts. It's like when he goes he basically tells like the leader of this tribe, "I'll be back." Like, okay, oh come on.
Yeah.
And then he goes and he just in this sea of desert, he finds their biker bar.
He tracks their speeders.
But so I would argue how they float, like there's no tracks.
Yeah.
But
no,
so he-
I think that's perfectly exactly the point of all of this is like
Yeah.
this type of show would do that where it's like, well, he's a tracker, but you're like, but they float, they levitate, so there's
Yeah,
no
like,
track.
track
to
what?
track.
And that's
right.
also the part of like that's what makes deserts so perilous is that the winds change and the tracks disappear.
It's gone.
So it's like
Right.
what? And
But
then-
also,
Something
there's that. I mean, what's the most famous line about the Sand People in Star Wars? The most famous line.
they walk in
They
lines
always
to get-
travel
file.
single file to hide their numbers.
Yeah.
That is not happening in this show.
I saw
They
that-
clearly don't.
I saw that too. They do it later, but there is the scene right where they're all like they're doing like
Yeah.
this type of thing, and it's like
Yeah.
that's
It's the
not-
Saving Private Ryan walk, through the field, which is the way that you should walk in the military anyways, because you're spreading yourself out. You don't walk single file unless you're like attacking something. But I mean, that's just the line that sticks with you as a child. And then they're just like the first thing you see of them is them walking
a spread
in
formation.
single file, like,
Yeah.
spread formation. So it's kind of already, you're kind of like, come on, man, just, can you do one thing that's not retcon? Can we do like a thing
Yeah.
without member berries? Speaking of, so when he's been in the back to tank a few times, and he flashed back to Camino, which I'm totally, into, because Camino has, especially if you've seen Bad Batch, it's it's interesting to go, which we'll do a show on Bad Batch, I think would be fun, because
Oh yeah.
I really liked it a lot, which is weird because I feel like I've liked the last season of Clone Wars, and I've liked the Bad Batch. Mandalorian's still at the top, but then it's probably like Bad Batch, Clone Wars, and then everything else live action, in a way.
Yeah,
Just because I think that they're just there's something richer and deeper about the Star Wars animated world, which at first I didn't like at all. I was like not into it. I was like, no, I don't want to watch animated stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Not many people watched the Clone Wars early on.
Yeah. So I'm loving it. But anyways, he's in Camino in these flashbacks, and they keep flashing back to him as a kid, looking out the window, watching the Slave One go by. And it's just like, stop it. We know, man. Like, we get it. That was him. I don't know why. I mean, I assume that there's a purpose to it, that we're gonna see, that
they're building something.
But they've opened on him.
They're building something for something in the future. They're like, we got to get a live action Camino built up again. Why?
Yeah, that's a good point.
In a couple years.
Yeah.
But
some other project.
To that though, it's frustrating, because it's like, it makes you think, like, why do I need this information right now? Like, I don't need it right now. Stop doing it.
Well, that's episode 1, right? That's like
it happens again though.
Oh, no.
When he's in the tree,
he's having his vision.
Yeah. When he's in the
When
trees.
he's got the nose lizard. Okay.
Yeah, the nose lizard. Yeah.
I'm fine with it there. I think the interesting thing is, well, I don't know.
It happens in chapter 3.
I don't want to go in a tangent of like, we're not going to see anything that's like that's post Camino and pre start of this show, right? Like, we're not going to see him flying himself in the Slave One, being a bounty hunter, going on some, it's like the visions are only going to be what makes sense for fans, where fans can go, yeah, this member berry, that member berry, gotcha,
Right. Yeah.
Bing bang boom.
Yeah. Which still perplexes me why there was no member berry inside the Sarlacc, but what are you gonna do? Didn't make any sense to me.
Well, because we've seen it. But yeah, it's true.
Yeah,
that
I
was
suppose.
like a traumatic thing for him, so
Yeah.
it should have been a part of it.
Yeah. But yeah, we're in that place where we're gonna start seeing. It is interesting though, isn't it? That because I think that we had expected there to be a Boba Fett TV show a long time ago.
Well, a movie. There's going to be a movie. We
really?
thought there's going to be the Solo movie, and then there's going to be a Boba Fett movie.
Oh,
This
I see.
rumor.
Yep.
And then Solo didn't do so well, and all those rumors went away.
And then suddenly there's
and
a
it took
Mandalorian.
till the Mandalorian, till Boba Fett came back
Gotcha.
and actually became a thing.
Which reinforces something that I was talking to my brother Luke about, and he said that it's all the non-original characters that are making the most interesting new content.
Yes.
I said, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a really good point, because there's no, you can have little tiny member berries, or I guess I should say, just we'll call them Easter eggs when it comes to like Mandalorian.
Yeah.
You can, because there's no history to the character.
Yes.
When you're building on a character that already is in canon, suddenly now you have this challenge of trying to work in all of this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Immediately.
And then you've got douche holes like us spewing out our face mouths all the stuff we don't like about it. Whereas in Mandalorian, you're just along for the ride, man, because it's all fresh and new.
That's fair. Yeah.
And then suddenly Luke Skywalker shows up, and you're like, "Wow, this is amazing!" So I think that's where the difference is, maybe in that.
I think so much of my frustration with when Disney bought Star Wars, and it's like I knew they were going to do it, and this is exactly what we're talking about, is them going, well, people love Luke. What's Star Wars? It's X-Wings and it's Millennium Falcon, and you're like, no, that's a story. That's part of a
Yeah.
story,
Mhm.
but it's not Star Wars.
Yeah.
And so they didn't get it, and they said people want more of that thing. And you go, no, people want more of the mythology and these wacky characters and these bizarre worlds
Mhm.
having all these interactions and expanding the world. I want new crap. And it took them a real hot minute to realize that.
Yeah.
And so now you go back to a Boba Fett show, and it butts right back up against that again.
Yeah.
It's like the second you have Han Solo back in a show, or like Luke Skywalker. I'm like, okay, now they got to deal with Luke. Okay, they brought him back, but what are we gonna do with him?
And it makes it
Especially when are they gonna retcon the sequels? What are we gonna do? Because we know what happens. So yeah, we're already tied to that. Where the Mandalorian, we have no clue what that dude does.
Oh.
Ding, jing, jing. What's his name? Yeah.
Jardine.
Dinjarin. Ding dong, ding dong.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's interesting about Luke had also said that Rogue One would have made a great series. That's a good point. It was I really loved the movie, but yeah, it would have made a great series because you get to see this whole epic saga of what's going on.
Pre-rebellion,
Yeah, of pre-rebellion type stuff. But then there's
and the arc of that rebel group.
exactly.
From guerrilla warfare to we want to have virtues and whatever. Say the force, may the force be with you. It's like they didn't start there.
Totally. Well, that's why Ahsoka becomes this interesting tie-in between because Clone Wars developed Anakin and Obi-Wan in a way that the movies never did. And it gave you that sense of why Obi-Wan would call him a friend. Because by the end of the Sith Avengers or whatever the hell that movie was called, Revenge of the Sith, you don't even think that they ever liked each other.
Well, yeah, the beginning of that movie is the first time that you actually see those two characters have a fun adventure at the beginning.
Right.
And a lot of people still don't like that part, and I'm like, the beginning of that movie is, I love that.
Yeah.
The beginning, when they go and then face Dooku and all that crap, because it's actually them at least going on an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's bickering there's not really bickering. It's like, they remembered, oops, we need to show these guys as kind of actually being buddies for a hot minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why
wish we would have done it in episode 2.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is why Clone Wars is
forgot.
great. Because you actually have them be pretty much fully formed Jedi doing their thing, and and then why the last season of Clone Wars is so brilliant because the whole season takes place during the course of Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
So it's super cool. But Ahsoka is interesting because it's almost like I would love to have the original trilogy redone with her as a character in that, because she was so close to Anakin and so close to,
the prequel trilogy.
to
New Hope.
To A New Hope, yeah, like that kind of stuff, because she's such an interesting character. It also does beg the question: how did Obi-Wan get so old? But that was age-wise. Alec Guinness probably wasn't that far off in age.
That's
People just look younger and hotter now.
Actors back then versus actors today.
That's true.
Like actors today that know how to be creepy vampires that never age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Paul Rudd didn't exist 40 years ago.
Neither did Brad Pitt. Yeah.
Yeah.
None of these people.
Brad Pitt's like almost 60 or something.
Jennifer Aniston
Yeah.
does not exist.
Did you see that interesting fun fact that two of the girls from the new from Sex and the City, they've got the new series come out. Well, the whoever is Sarah Jessica Parker and whatever, Cynthia Nixon or whatever, are the same age as Estelle Getty and Betty White were in that. That's bonkers. Like the idea
Golden Girls?
that
Golden
Golden Girls then, as the Golden Girls, are the actual same age as the girls in Sex and the City.
Yep.
Yeah. That's how different it is to be a human being right now. And how different our
Oh my
perception of
gosh.
what women are, what it looks like and feels like to be in society now is that's the difference, man. Yeah, they were in their mid
In the 80s,
50s
it was like,
in
how
Golden
old are
Girls.
you? You're knitting and you have white hair. Leave us alone.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and you're
Your
55.
life is over.
55 is 15 years from now for us, and that's
It's blown my
insane
mind.
to think that that's how old the Golden Girls were when they were making Golden Girls. Yeah,
What?
yeah.
But
But-
yeah, Estelle Getty was super. Well, Estelle Getty was the youngest of the group in the first.
Yeah, I think she and who is Blanche? Who played Blanche?
Rue McClanahan.
Yeah, she and
I
Rue
mean, I can't
McClanahan.
remember.
They were the same age.
Just
in
had that
the
up on the
show.
Google machine.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
Oh no, I love the Golden Girls.
yeah, you do.
So I
Brad
want
was
to.
Great. Okay, sorry.
No.
So Star Wars.
So it's this. So this
Stay
is.
on target. Stay on
Yeah.
target.
So this is. So I want to immediately dive into the issue with Boba Fett in Chapter 2 and Chapter 1, in that we had talked about last episode of how everything felt disjointed and a little wonky and logistically wrong and whatever. And I had an issue with the Major Domo coming to get tribute from Boba Fett. I want to explain that issue now. So the issue I have with that is in Chapter 2, Boba Fett goes to visit the mayor, like walks up into his office, like, I'm the crime boss. What are you doing? You tried to assassinate me, blah, blah, blah. And the mayor goes like, I work for you, man. Like, he's totally just like I'm here at your behest. Like, you're in charge. I'm just this guy. I'm a fake. I don't really do anything.
You brought an assassin. Thank you. Let's take care of him.
And they kill him, and he explains the assassins, which again is a whole nother thing about how terrible this assassin. They're universally known, but they don't carry guns.
They parkour though, bro.
So this is where my issue
They
with
put the
with
ass
Chapter
in the
1
assassin.
comes in, is that that Major Domo walks into the new crime boss's house and says, yeah, we don't have any tribute for you, but do you have some, like, where's your tribute to us?
Right.
And it's like, are you assuming that the new crime boss isn't aware of the old crime boss to know that the mayor already works for him? Like, what? Like, that was my issue. It was just like, you just destroyed that whole scene in Chapter 1 because that guy wouldn't have the audacity to walk in there and be like, I don't have anything for you, but where's our money? And then the mayor's basically like, don't shoot me, I work for you. Like, what are you doing?
Right.
And it's just like, I don't think it's smart enough to set up the Major Domo as like being like a double agent, third party type of thing. I don't think that's a thing. And I have seen Chapter 3. I don't think this is where that's going, but it just felt like in Chapter 2 that immediately just destroyed that whole scene from Chapter 1. Because
Well,
you're like,
I felt like
why?
the
Like, how, assuming that the new crime boss would have done zero research or be any bit aware of the existing crime boss's influence. And I mean, he does have stuff to learn, and you will find out he does have stuff to learn.
But he was in Jabba's palace. Like, he didn't pay attention to what Jabba was doing. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
I think that though I was reading the mayor, even though he's speaking through a translator that was coming out as a British actor's voice.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was
okay with
reading the inflection as him being a backpedaling wiener, where he was like, what are you talking about?
Here he
we
is.
Didn't, we didn't
No, I
mean to
didn't
do
do
that.
that."
Yeah, this is I work for you. Kill the assassin. He didn't kill you. You need to
think when
rethink what's going on here, Boba Fett, because that's not me, bro. Here's some money
on,
for you.
on first pass,
That's what I
right,
was thinking.
On first pass,
what's
I got
going
that
on.
too. But then in second pass, when you get through the end of the episode and then come back to it, it does.
You watched it
it-
twice?
Yeah, I've watched it twice.
Good for you.
It
did-
I was doing some homework.
No, I
and
love
was-
it. No, that's great because I wanted
but,
to.
Well, because I wanted to catch the nuance, because the reason I watched it twice is because when you have things like flashbacks
Yeah.
and all that stuff, for me it's very disjointed when you're being told the
Right.
story the first time. So that's why I want to go back, kind of like,
Solidify
now that I
it
have the
a little more.
spoilers of the end of the episode, let me go watch the episode again with a fresh set, because now I'm not trying to figure out what's going on. I know what's going on. Now backfill my information.
Yeah.
And like so immediately when he's like, kill the assassin, I was like, oh, busted. Like,
Yeah.
oh, that guy was
That's what
about
it felt
to
like.
talk and you killed him
Exactly.
so he would give it up. But when you watch it the second time, it's like, no, because you don't know about the Hutts at that time. You don't know about the Hutts.
Right.
So you're like, oh, well, he's clearly backpedaling. And then when the Hutts show up, you're like, oh, yeah, the mayor's a nobody.
Mhm.
The mayor is a figure piece for the people. He's not actually doing anything.
How about that guy running the desk? His like administrative
With the
assistant
space mullet?
with the space mullet. Just come on, man. Some of that stuff.
That's
Where it's like,
It goes back to the Taika Waititi thing, where I think they're like, "Oh, that's like funny, right?" And you're like, "It can be, but
Yeah.
you gotta find the." I think the problem is
It's very
it
impractical
came
for
too
the desert.
early in the show, where
right.
I don't know.
Didn't Taika direct
I
a
get
couple
you.
episodes of Mandalorian or no?
He
Yeah,
did.
Taika Waititi did.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying I think they go, well, people like that kind of thing, subverting everything and
Yeah.
taking the piss out of it. But you're like, but what are we supposed to think about Boba Fett? Does anyone give a schnickles that this is Boba Fett? Do people fear Boba Fett? Because I thought he was maybe feared.
Yeah.
And so now he's walking around and nobody seems to give a crap, and there's no weight to his character within this world that we're watching him inhabit. So I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about him. And sometimes he's a good fighter, and sometimes he sucks.
Right.
I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about him. And
Mhm.
that's where we're at with this show.
Right. And
Yeah.
in perspective of chapter 2, yes, it's very, very confusing. Chapter 3 sheds some light on that information.
Okay.
But to what I was going to say with episode 1 is that I don't think when they cut apart the outlines for these episodes, I think whoever did it thought that they were on Netflix, where they were just going to dump them all off and people would binge watch the whole thing. They're
not.
forgetting that they're a weekly episodic.
Eat every little nugget. Yeah.
Right. So it's like now some people will watch it start to finish, and then all of this will be cohesive. But when you break it into a week to week, like some of the stuff that just happened in chapter 3, you're like, oh, well, really, that really changes everything that just happened in chapter 2. Or like this thing in chapter 2, totally dismantling the thing in chapter 1. Is like, what are you? Who decided where these edits were? Because this is all weird.
Yeah.
It's just wrong. Like we talked about last episode, the Gamorreans being right there at his side and then disappearing and then coming in to save the day in the fight. Like, no, you were literally right there. Like, what? Or this thing with the domo. And then in this one, you've got this heist, which they don't talk about the time between Tusken Raider Boba Fett and new boss Boba Fett. They don't talk about that time.
Right.
So you start to see like, oh, well, he is now negotiating with the spice traders, which is like, okay, so that's where he gets his first taste of, I could be a boss. Like I can now manipulate this underworld, and this is my step into it. This is how I first start to do this, because I've now dictated basically protection money from these spice traders, which are universal galactic spice traders. I'm now collecting protection money from these spice traders for the Tusken Raiders now. So I think that whole thing was supposed to set up this is where he got the aspiration that there's a vacuum here, that because he knows Jabba's dead, right? He doesn't know who's in charge now. So he's thinking like, it might be a little bit loose. I can step in. And I think that the train heist and negotiating is his first step into that of like, yeah, no, I can totally, this is what I do now. My boss Jabba is gone and I have skills. Let's do it.
Yeah, he can crawl himself out of a sarlacc.
Yeah,
he's got skills.
So this episode, yeah, it was super weird.
I liked it though. I thought it was fun.
I didn't think it was like super weird.
It was
I thought
speedy
it was
and
a better tone all around.
For sure.
It just there was a lot of time with the Tuskens, which I didn't know if I needed.
Well, a lot of
Do you still hate them?
The
Do you still have your Tusken prejudice?
Come on, man.
No, I think it's because
it was the practice fighting that bugged me. It was just so much practice
the training
fighting.
montage.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that's the thing. It's
And it was like the guy's like, hold it tighter. He's like, I am holding it tighter. It's like, that's really what she's saying. That's terrible.
Right.
riding.
Yeah.
'Cause
and
it's
I
just
think,
like,
because
it's just
also I'm
weird.
like, should he be holding it looser? In that moment, I'm like, is he holding it too tight? What's the lesson here? I don't know what I'm supposed. What am
Yeah, I don't
learning?
know.
well, I think
Yeah.
my issue with
No.
the Tusken Raiders is that we know he leaves and becomes Boba Fett again, quote unquote Boba Fett again. But if you think about it, to every experience or every movie or TV show you've ever watched where somebody hits rock bottom and then eventually like finds a new family, they don't leave. Right? There's no I'm going back home
Mhm.
in it happens occasionally, but
Iron
like
Man 3.
but you know what I mean though, like right it's very rare that when
Nailed
somebody hits
it.
rock bottom and then they
Loses
get
his
brought
suit
up in
and he
their
gets
new
it back.
family and then they leave. It's
Right.
usually so I think that's my issue with the Tuscan stuff. It's like, all right, so
Right.
he's adopting their culture, he's becoming a Tuscan,
Well,
and then it's like, so why are you leaving? I don't
yeah, but again, I surmise. I mean, he's gonna bring all the tribes together. I assume. Who knows?
Mhm.
Oh yeah, that's
It's gonna be Avatar, but we'll see.
How did this episode end? He went. Is it just at the end of the train and they got the water and they all cheer because they got water popping out of the side of the train? Fade to black. Is that what they do on this one? Right, because he has a conversation with
that's in there
with the
yeah,
bad
it's about
guys.
there.
Towards the end.
Yeah, and then they pop the top off the thing, but he doesn't ride off on a
No, he doesn't
bantha or
really
anything in this one, right? Yeah, okay, good. Because it's just
rides off in a double sunset.
yeah, because it does start to smush a little bit together in a way, but he gets his new clothes, right?
Yep,
He
Emperor's
gets
new
his
clothes.
his
Yeah.
garb
That's
and
what
his
happened.
That's how it
his
ends.
weapon.
Got it. He goes and he carves his weapon.
And you
And,
go, and he walks
Mhm.
out and he puts his hood up, and they're all like, "Cool, dude."
Yeah.
And they do
Drinking
this, and I was
sea-
like,
their
"I don't
sea
know
water.
if this feels Star Warsy."
Yeah.
You need to do the like. Hang
It's
loose,
Maori.
okay?
It's fine. It's cool because it's Taika. Yeah. But it's funny because when I was watching the scene where they're putting the blades on the end of his
Oh,
gaffy
they're
stick,
welding.
and then he puts it into the fire, and I was like, anyone who's watched Forged in Fire would know that he needs to quench that. So clearly he didn't. So that's not a hard blade. That's
Even
not gonna be
that,
sharp.
but they're just
I
like,
also
let
love
me
it.
stick the spike on a rod and
Yeah.
then put some stuff on it
And a little bit of
put it in the
glue.
fire, and now they're bonded.
Yeah, they put some glue on there.
Yeah, or he starts out with a stick that's like 8 feet long, and they only use about 2 feet of it.
Yeah. It was just a lot of, because you could infer from the stick that he brought that there was the thing. You could have shaved off about 4 minutes by him just emerging with his robes, and they're like, here, we carved this stick for you. You know, that would have been totally fine for me to have a little ceremonial stick handling.
There was a lot of unnecessary montage.
There's a little chubbies, a little bit of fat.
Did you get a little chubby?
Words, yeah, wow. Forging
You
gets
say
me.
that when you're editing. Oh, too many chubbies. I got cut.
That's
Yeah,
how I
chop
give notes
some
to
chubbies
Brian.
out.
I give him the chubby notes. Like how many chubbies we need to chop off this one.
Bro, you got 4 chubbies happening. Figure
Bro,
it out.
at 24 seconds, way too chubby.
I'll let you have 1 chubby on this.
Yeah. And one chubby only. But overall, fun episode. I did enjoy it a lot. The train heist bit was pretty enjoyable, but yeah, lots of dead banthas and lots of dead Tuscans too. It doesn't seem like they're real expendable in this show.
Yeah,
If they don't have
again,
a
I think
face,
I
they can just
mentioned
run them over.
last episode, I'm like, how many are in this tribe? Because
Yeah.
I never got a sense that there were too many of them,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going.
We'll even
through 'em,
talk
and
about how
somehow-
the tribes have dispersed, but they've maintained like a small, almost like a secrecy
Mhm.
of their specific tribe. So yeah, you have to then infer that it's like 30.
Well, they're the ones
or
that wear
less.
the black stuff,
Yeah.
as opposed to other tribes. Like they visually distinguish them, and so he's taken to that. He's sold off or whatever happens to that specific tribe, and you don't feel like it's very big, yet.
Yeah.
They've had like 30 of them die, and there still seems to be all the same amount
Mhm.
as moment 1 when we first see them.
Yeah.
they're just rabbits. One, you can't tell. So during the heist scene though, the spice trader cartel looked very similar to the Tuscan Raiders. during that whole heist scene.
Oh,
So
sure.
I kept on not understanding who was getting knocked off the train and who was dying and who wasn't, because they had the robes, metal face with like stuff sticking out. So it was just sort of an interesting
like from
visually.
afar.
Yeah, very hard to distinguish what
Dark
was going on.
robes.
Yeah, yeah, it was interesting, but it just felt very Mandalorian in that respect too, where it was sort of like hatches popping up and people getting pulled. It's just like, it's just all the same stuff, man. Like,
Yeah.
let's, I get it though. Fun show, really like it. Again, we're picking at it, but I feel like there's some bigger world stuff to do with it than, because it's starting to feel claustrophobic. I'll tell you that already. All this, it's just
And there's an
all
Obi-Wan
Tatooine
show
all day
coming down the.
to exist
and
on
it's like, we're gonna get
Tatooine.
more Tatooine.
yeah.
I hope this dude goes off world in like minute 20.
Yeah, because I'm tired of the desert right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot. Way too much Tatooine. Yeah, it's like Disney. You didn't learn your lesson, did you? You thought you did, but
Yeah.
you didn't. You actually don't know why the Mandalorian worked.
Yeah. Oh, it's one hell of an easy set though. You just
Right.
Yeah,
shoot
cheap as hell.
outside, throw some green screen up.
But when you're in the volume,
Yeah. You can do
go
anything you
anywhere.
want.
They've already proven this with the Mandalorian.
And the Mandalorian went everywhere, and that was
Yeah.
cool. The thing about the Mandalorian that was so cool was taking all those old Ralph McQuarrie concepts and bringing them into real life that would have never gotten life breathed into them. And so a lot of sets were his ideas from Dagobah, but they put it on an ice planet or whatever. It's cool, man.
Right.
This one is just like, it's because maybe that's why we're getting flashbacks to Camino, because they're just tired of showing the
need
desert or
something
something,
else.
Yeah.
Variety.
Yeah. So
I've got the YouTube chat just popped up.
Oh yeah.
We had some visitors.
General Kratos. Is Kratos
yeah.
the guy from God of War?
Yeah.
Oh, he says all hail Lucifer.
Yeah. And then someone who is definitely a bot just said var.ong.
Dude, if I want us to get big enough to have bots and spammers, are you kidding me? This is
Wonderful.
great. This
Yeah,
is
this is
making me
great.
feel
Step
wanted.
forward.
It's hilarious.
Yeah,
But
keep
now there's only
going.
2 people watching. I'm assuming it's me and Luke.
Yeah,
Hi, Luke.
probably. Hi, Luke.
Yeah, no. I'm trying to talk about this episode as a standalone is hard again because my issue was all the logistics of like, why are they being shot? What the heck? Like, just let the train, like, just all that stuff. And you're like, meh. But knowing that there's a bigger picture coming, at the time of watching it, I think actually Andrea just kind of looked at me and she said, I might be done. and she no, I mean she nailed it. Like, there's no baby Yoda here.
Oh,
which is
for the general audience.
Yeah,
Is that
and she's a fairly
Mandalorian
big.
is.
I mean, I've done a really good job to nerddom. She's a very big Star Wars fan, so I've succeeded there. But this one, like I said, it's too much into the minutia of other world stuff that lives in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
Like it's the Sopranos in space, or the Sopranos in the desert kind of thing, where you've got crime bosses, but then you've got like this Dances with Wolves stuff, Last of the Mohicans kind of thing, where you're just like, what the hell? Like, it's not happening fast enough to tell me where you're going with this. So I don't know where you're going. Whereas like the Mandalorian episode 1, you've got a baby Yodster.
What are you gonna do about it?
We're
You've
in.
got a distinct conflict.
Yeah.
Right.
Where I think with this one, it's just like he got kidnapped, so yeah, he's got to earn their respect, but there's no like, oh man.
Well, and there
Okay.
was that was a big moment. I went into, you go into Mandalorian with no expectations because there's not been a live action series.
Yep.
But also, I wish I could recapture that feeling where you're in episode 1, chapter 1, when Grogu is revealed, or at the time just the child, baby Yoda, emerges. He shoots IG-11, and then he, does the ET finger thing, and then, credits. You're just like, what
Yeah.
the what did I just watch? And then there continue to be episodes like that. The one just before the final episode of the first season where, what's his name? Nick Nolte's character gets shot and killed, and the speeder bike trooper picks up Baby Yoda, and then cut to black. You're just like, what is going on? You're so invested. Finnick doesn't even have anything to do in this show yet. There's
Other than going, this is a bad idea.
There's not even a relationship there. Like, we're not seeing any sense of danger or stakes within the characters to suggest, because we know Boba Fett's not going to die. I mean, come on, and Finnick's probably not going to die either. And so there's just no real stakes going on now. You didn't know what was going to happen to Baby Yoda. Yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything.
Oh yeah.
No, I mean, you're right. It's they're taking their time to get to a point, and I think people are gonna start dropping off. But also, if you're gonna take this much time, it better be big.
Yeah, make it worth
like
it.
if it's just
Make it
a
rain.
war between the Hutts and the tribes of Tatooine,
Mm-hmm.
Book of Boba Fett, just go ahead and close that book, set it back on the shelf. Like, you tried.
Because we've
you
learned
tried
trade
real
disputes
hard.
are not interesting at all.
Yeah.
People don't
Like I
want to
say,
watch it.
There's some stuff that happens, and I can't wait to talk about chapter 3 because it's real good. And that's why it passed my 3-episode check, because episode 3 does some great stuff. So that'll be a fun one to talk about. But these first 2 are like, they're on the edge of almost boring.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the train, that's the highlight of the episode, right? Is the train heist.
Yeah.
Everything else is just kind of like, all right.
Well, I gotta say though, and we won't. Well, I don't know, earmuffs, Eric, because I watched episode 3 also.
I don't care.
I was literally texting and Instagramming during episode 3, and I didn't care. That's how bored I
What?
was in that
No.
episode. Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, that's not spoilers. That's just
Yeah.
So the spoilers are one of you really enjoyed it, one of you didn't. Okay.
Yeah, and it's not that it wasn't enjoyable. It became background noise, which
I thought
is
you were
sort
gonna
of
tell me that they killed Splang Belongo.
no. Splang Splongo died. Yeah, I hope you weren't too attached to Splang, because he dead, or she dead, or they dead. I don't know what his pronouns were. Yeah.
Longo.
Yeah,
Hashtag.
but Team
Well, that-
Topugliani comes back, so
So the
we're in good shape.
what are we gonna call it? Like, do we call it Tuscan time and current time, just to differentiate these
Sure.
two timelines?
Yeah,
Live down.
So the current time,
good old pterodactyl time.
yes, when he meets the Hutts, the twins,
That Trachydiaculus.
that's interesting stuff, because the twins are I think they're in Rebels. They're in one of the animated ever so briefly.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if early Clone Wars has a bunch of huts.
Yeah, well, then there's also the Hutt that gets arrested and then freed, that deals with
Yeah.
Ahsoka, and then comes back much later, with like a
That's
Rancor
the,
episode.
Like,
But so the twins and the Hutts coming in on the because they're on the litter, which is a weird word for the chairs that carry people in.
there's no
but
way those dudes were carrying
right.
all that weight.
I know. Yeah, it was
yeah.
cute,
But then they've got
Yeah.
they introduce this like a Wookiee enforcer,
oh yes, let's talk about the Wookiee.
which is from the comic books,
Yeah, I think that
and
is.
his
now I
name
remember.
is like 50 Ks and 25 Rs and a Stan in there somewhere. Like, "Grr, Stan. It's a great character and plays a bigger role in stuff upcoming, but it's such an interesting introduction to another ancillary character. Like, all right, I'm curious now,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
because this Wookiee works for the Hutts. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how? Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Like, how does that? Because that feels
Because he was a
out of
bounty
character.
hunter, right, in previous
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was how we know him he's a bounty hunter.
Yeah.
Because Finnick seemed to know who he was.
absolutely.
She called him by name, and so it was clear that she knew who he was. I don't know. I couldn't tell if Boba knew who he was or not, or if he didn't care or whatever. But cool looking character, cool looking Wookiee. The best one we've seen probably besides Chewie.
Oh, yeah, they're like, let's take a Wookiee and make him look like he's in Dungeons and Dragons. You're like, all right,
Right.
put spikes on him.
Yeah.
Cool.
Throw some spikes on him, and so yeah, it's that character is. But see, that's a great example of what's going on. Like, I would almost rather watch a Fennec Shan show, this Wookiee bounty hunter show. That's what I would rather see, because you're not beholden to something stuck on
And
Tatooine
it's
or whatever.
Fresh.
Yeah.
It's new, and you go, I don't know what this could be. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
But Boba
Well, yeah,
Fett,
'cause
as
the
much
hut
as
part-
we think we want Boba Fett, we go, do we? I don't know.
Mhm.
We'll see.
Yeah.
The hut part started to touch on
Oh.
that like monarchy politic type stuff of like, oh well, this, Tatooine belongs to the Hut family, and
Right.
you're the next in succession. And it's just like, oh, I didn't watch Downton Abbey for a reason.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't
right.
I don't want this. Like, I don't want the Duke of Hut to come in and be like, this is my birthright. Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah,
Oh,
blah,
but
blah.
I love Succession. So, but
Well, but like the thing is it's like, or the Tudors or something. But guess what? We can't have boobs and sex in this. So it's like
Unfortunately.
those other shows that could lean on certain things,
true.
a Disney show can't.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
Game of
I can.
Thrones, whatever else.
My interest in
Yeah, Game of
monarchy
Thrones.
type content is so low.
Well, this is very
fun.
though violent by all accounts in a way. There's a lot of Bantha murder and Tuscan murder, and there's just a lot of.
Did you have Jeffy moments?
I did. Oh, every single
Yeah.
time.
no.
Are you kidding
Jeffy
me?
It took me a minute
moments.
to remember Jeffy moments.
Yeah, I even had
Sorry.
some Jeffy moments when
Yeah.
I mean, they softened it up. Instead of the Hut grabbing a lizard and eating it, he has that fluffy thing that he uses to wipe his sweat with. And so I get that they're like softening up that
gross.
aspect of the violence, but it's also, I felt bad for the little flurry thing. I thought I had a Jeffy moment with him. He was just sopping up Jabba's sweat. That was pretty
Yeah,
disgusting.
it was just like a towel, a
Yeah,
living towel. just
so
like-
yeah, it's pretty gross. But yeah, and they should have hired 40 more extras to
Oh,
carry that.
Well, but too, it's like it's
giant
Star
bed.
Wars. Can we just have like boosters underneath?
Yeah,
Like,
can
it
come
float?
on. Can it just levitate like everything else in Star Wars?
right.
Yeah.
Can we
Right.
use Star Wars magic, please?
Yeah.
Luke says, Mandalorian, I couldn't wait another week to watch Boba Fett. I'll watch it if I remember. Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about it. Watch it
Yeah.
when it comes around. Yeah, it's a good point.
Well, it's almost. I would almost argue to wait a couple of weeks and get a
Right.
couple of them
Get
built
some
up.
Minutia.
They don't stand alone in a way that are super strong.
Inertia.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, the Mandalorian. You could go and just watch like episode 3 of the Mandalorian.
And
Just
I
add
do.
a context. Just go watch it. You're good to go. This
Mhm.
one, right? I think. I don't know. It definitely feels like somebody told them that they were gonna dump them on like The Witcher on Netflix and just like, here it is.
Right.
Here's the Book of Boba
Yeah.
Fett. And I powered through that in a weekend. Whereas this one, they're like, yeah, we can totally do that. And then someone's like, wait, this is every week, guys. Did we forget about that? And they're like, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
People are digesting this at the speed of the sand vagina, so we gotta be more careful here.
We've got to be more careful. Give the man some air while he's inside of
Yeah.
that sandy,
True.
sandy
I watched
hole.
The Witcher. I don't remember anything that happened.
Well, that's the problem
I mean,
with
Really?
binging,
It's a
though.
blur. Do I care? No. Do I enjoy it? Sure. I don't know.
I think so.
And yeah, with a show that's weekly, yeah, it is true. You have to retrain yourself, and it every episode matters a whole lot more. It's very
Yeah.
true.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's
Definitely.
why the whole the Tuscan time versus crime boss time. I don't know when those worlds are gonna mash up,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and I think that a good thing they did was the negotiation at, like I said, at the end of the train,
Mhm.
because then you're like, okay, that protection thing was kind of a crime bossy activity.
Yeah, I like it.
So it's like, all right, that's good work. Just he's dabbling in.
He's weaseling his way in
Yeah,
little
yeah.
by little.
I think the tough thing is Sand People time. He has a lot to learn.
Yeah.
Present time, quote unquote, he's got a lot to learn.
Right,
Like,
right, yeah.
So we're bouncing back and forth between him being out of his element and then being out of his element. And
That's a
you're
good point.
going,
Yeah, no, for sure.
now if you see him as this, you know, it's like uh, someone else that they've done this with is Darth Maul. But like when Darth Maul pops up as the crime syndicate leader later, like I don't know if it's Rebels. I can't remember when they really
Mhm.
are establishing him
Yeah.
as still being around. You know, he shows up at the end of the Solo show, but you
Indeed,
go, this
time-
guy's
what's it-
terrifying, and he's whoa. Like
Mhm.
I have no doubt that he will. Everyone fears him completely.
Yeah.
And so it's like if you have a show with him and then you go back in the past and you see him, which I don't want. Don't give me a young
Young Darth Maul.
Darth Maul show, right?
You like Young
But-
Rock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like that's the point. It's like Boba Fett's out of his element completely, and
Mhm.
it's like, oh, we gotta watch him figure everything out. Oh
Yeah.
boy.
No thanks.
I thought he was gonna be cool, but he doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah,
at
he's
all.
figuring things out in tandem, and I get that there's some limitations because I think I would have almost been okay with an Empire era Boba Fett show. You know, something of him being a bounty hunter, somewhere in there. I think I might have been okay with that.
Because you could have one-off episodes and you can have an arc going over the season.
Right, and it wouldn't have to have anything to do with anything. It could have just existed and then ended with him getting the fob on Han Solo, you know, or something like that. And that would have been fine, but I get that you can't use Tamir Morrison without doing like a face swap or something like that from that era because you're just not going to buy, you know, him necessarily being that old or whatever it is.
That much, yeah, right.
So I get
you
it.
have to make him that much younger.
Yeah. And I think that they're converging on something. It's clearly not a Peter Gunn, or is it Peter Gunn? Who's the guy who kind of has the Marvel playbook going on?
James Gunn.
James Gunn. It's not that level, but I think that there is some aspect of with us having the Boba Fett, Mandalorian, and Ahsoka shows happening in the same timeline. You're going to see these characters converge with each other again at some point in time, I think. Yeah.
Well, it's like even I think as much as everyone loved The Mandalorian to start off with, I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm enjoying it, it's fine. I didn't have that giant spark of whoa. I think because I had already loved the Clone Wars. So I
sure.
had liked
Yeah.
newer Star Wars where other people hadn't at all.
Right.
So for them, that The Mandalorian was the first time that they were enjoying Star
Yep.
Wars again in some real, true way.
Yeah.
And then where they're going, wow, this is creative and it feels fresh,
Mhm.
right? And so I had already felt that. So with The Mandalorian, I was like, well, I'm excited for season 3. I think I said that on my other podcast
Yeah.
with friends, and they were like, okay, Eric, and I was like,
Right.
you'll see,
Yeah. Yeah.
because
yeah.
I knew where it could go, and so for this show, I'm definitely like, yeah, we'll see season 3, I guess,
Mhm.
if it makes it there where they can
Yeah.
really start doing something with it.
Well, when you're
But yeah,
talking
right
about
now, I'm like, I'm just gonna watch, and I'm not gonna really worry about it, I guess.
yeah, for sure.
Not,
But
If I
Mandalorian-
get blown away, great, but I won't expect it.
I love that no expectations thing. But if you're talking about Mandalorian season 3, oh yeah, that's going to be, I think, the best season yet if it captures the Clone Wars feel, because so much dealt with Mandalore and all that kind of stuff, which has a feeling that's where we're going with it, with the Darksaber and all that kind of stuff, could potentially be the best season yet, you know, which I think would be great. Because even though we don't have the Grogu character anymore, at least, you know, present as the reason for being, I think that not having that character be something that the show had to protect is a good thing.
Yeah,
Because you
I
kinda
think
had
even
to
like
say
you
goodbye.
Had said, I remember you when we're talking about Mandalorian. You're like, boy, every week it's the kids in danger, and
Yeah.
then we get out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for a minute there it was
It gets
like
real tired.
yeah, it was kids in danger, Mando's fixing the ship. And so yeah, it definitely got a little exhausting after a while there. So but yeah, any parting thoughts about chapter 2, Book of Boba Fett, before we call it a night or day? Whatever time of the day you're listening to this is just fine by us.
It's fine. We're it's no judgment.
No judgment. We don't have any pants on.
It's on the line. It's got. This is the episode I think that you're gonna see a fall off in viewership, and then people getting into episode 3. I think they're gonna have to start to tighten up Raider time and current time, and start making those smash together a lot more, or people are just gonna be like, I don't want to try to watch 2 shows at once.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree. It does feel like 2 shows in the same 2 different times with the same problem, and that's kind of obnoxious for sure.
Yeah, it's like if speaking real quickly to The Witcher, like how that first season like plays with time. It's all over the place, and you're like, no more of that.
Yeah,
Let's be
it's a
done
little
with
much,
that.
right? For sure.
Right.
Yeah, it's
Just
definitely
move in a linear way forward.
I would never not watch the show, but if this was anything other than Star Wars, after 2 episodes, it's on the bubble for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's on that 3-episode bubble right now for me. So get it together. I think the answer, honestly, the answer to the whole situation is more parkour. Just give us more parkour.
Yeah, oh, of course, duh.
That'll fix everything.
And stealthy assassins that are boring and suck.
That are clear. Yeah, definitely.
They were all on the Death Star when it got blown up. That's what happened.
All right, yeah.
They were having their
Let's hope.
awesome bounty hunter meeting at Deck 7, room 555, which is right next to the intake port.
Room 1138 or whatever. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, thanks for
for
listening
THX.
to all of our people. We appreciate you very much. Thanks, Luke, for chiming in. Sarah chimed in on Facebook. Huck thinks there needs to be more dance numbers in Return of the Jedi. So we'll get on that. And thanks to General Kratos for your All Hail Lucifer.
The
I
3
guess.
tridents.
Yeah, 3 tridents along with it. Strong emoji game. Must be on mobile. Well, thanks. Because it's an effort to
We are
listen
each
to
one
live on mobile.
part of a trident.
Yeah, it's true. We are.
The 3 of us. Maybe.
We're the three Trident podcast. What was our podcast going to be called? The
Ours?
the Dirt Bikers? No, I forget
Oh,
what it was.
sand bikers?
Sand
What was
Bikers? Yeah, I don't remember.
no, I
We'll have
forgot
to play
already.
it back.
it? Sand choppers. Is that
Sand
what it was?
choppers, something like that.
Desert choppers.
chopper?
Desert choppers. Yeah,
Yeah, Desert Chopper.
sounds like an
Desert
80s.
chopper, I think. Yeah.
Well, next week we're going to be doing chapter 3. We'll have chapter 3, and we'll be talking about 3 and 4. Yeah, I'm going to be. You're going to hear me fly off
If
the
we
handle
make it
about
to
some
4,
desert
yeah.
choppers for sure. So I'm excited for you to watch this one, Eric.
Yeah.
Because
Episode 3 will be the bubble.
Oh, you
you're
watched
gonna
it.
hate
Okay, yeah,
it. Yeah.
Or love it.
Or
I
love
don't
it.
know.
Either or. All right, everyone.
You
Thanks
don't
for
know it's
watching.
me.
And actually, we will have our live stream. We won't have another live stream for 2 weeks. So we're going to do the live stream once every 2
Deal with
weeks.
it.
And we'll have a new episode, though, of the podcast coming up once every week. All right, everyone. Have a great night. May the force be with you. Oh, gosh. I almost threw up in my mouth when I said
Yeah,
that.
I hope you did.
That
Yeah.
sting a little.
We gotta have some sort of tagline, some kind of Star Wars, themed tagline, since that's what we do now, right? Is that-
Before the war.
We hope you live your life before the war. All right. Good night, everyone.
All right,